Okay, all right. Good evening and welcome to the North Bend City Council work session for April 7th at 4:33 here in the council chambers. We go ahead and call our meeting to order and ask our city recorder to help us with our roll call.
Counselor Jones.
Here.
Counselor Hamilton.
Here.
Counselor Garbo.
Here.
Mayor Ingledew.
Here.
Counselor Schultz. Here. Counselor Slater.
Here.
Counselor Torres. Here. Thank you.
All right, welcome everyone. Let's go ahead and welcome everybody who's here in person and online. And we'll also move into public comment. I see that I have one person signed up for public comment
Correct.
and none online.
Correct.
And Mr. Andrew Brainer, would you like to come forward?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, thank you, Madam Mayor and Council and City of North Bend. I am, as you know, one of the commissioners of the Coosa County Airport District today. And I just want to convey the great work that our first responders did for the City of North Bend today, City of Coos Bay, the Coosa County Sheriff Office, the Coast Guard, the Hazardous Materials Response Team, Bay Cities Ambulance, and for those I missed, I apologize, but those were the main ones that helped out with our accident at the airport today. I just want to say I'm very fortunate that we live in a great city, county, and how everybody can collaborate and work well together when we have these certain things. And so I'll just keep it short and sweet, and I just want to say thank you all. Thank you all.
Wonderful, thank you. We're glad to hear it sounds like everybody is safe.
As from the report, I can say that's what I've seen with the public address on the news. So
Wonderful. All right, thank you.
thank you.
So if that is our only public comment, we'll go. I'm going to ask our city reporter here, do we want to review, are we reviewing the work session agenda and then going into the strategic plan?
I think so. I
Okay,
think they should be swapped.
yes, I do too. And I know Mr. Wolf, our attorney here is online and he was going to also be prepared to see for that portion of it. So we'll go ahead and move our review of the city council agenda number 5. We're going to move that to the now it's the new number 4. That's okay. We go ahead and switch those. And Mr. Wolf, thank you for being here. I know our city attorney or our city manager is returning from another appointment, but it looks like we've got a pretty straightforward agenda item for tomorrow. At the beginning, as we look through tomorrow's agenda, we'll go through our roll call and we've got a couple ceremonial items. And I see that our fire chief is here. We'll have a ceremonial swearing in of our Lieutenant Mike Lucero. And I'm imagining he'll be here with maybe his family tomorrow and some supporters.
That's the reason we've been delayed so long getting here. His family's had a lot of athletic activities going on. They wanted to be here, so this is an opportunity to plan on.
Okay, great. So we'll everybody bring their best smiles. And we look forward to congratulating him on that. So that'll be that. Then on the consent calendar tomorrow, we have A through C. We have our acknowledgement of the bills. We've got the collection HQ subscription for the library. And we have authorization to have a Gold Coast trucking rebuild waste dump truck. Did anybody want to pull anything from the consent calendar or ask any questions of our staff on those items? Now,
Any question on the dump truck?
yeah. We'll ask our Ralph Dunn to come forward.
Ralph, is that for hauling out to the ranch?
We use that in our collection system primarily, so when we do our sewer repairs, we have 3 dump trucks in the city, 2 in the street department, 1 in the wastewater department. Believe it or not, we have 2 of them that are 2005 and 1 of them is a 1997. So it was. But
Any other questions? Okay, all right, sounds good. We'll keep that on the consent calendar. And then also, since our library director is here, it looks like it's a subscription that was already budgeted for. Was there anything else that you wanted to share with the council on that?
No.
If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah.
But it is an annual service.
It's an
in the library.
annual housekeeping item.
It is, yes.
Okay, all right, I just want to think. We think that we're not looking at that, so then the next, all right, so it's a pretty straightforward consent calendar, we'll have public comment tomorrow evening. And then we're going to go into the building code fees, public hearing. Does anybody want to speak to that? Mr. Dunham?
This is a public hearing you held for a fee increase in January because every year. The state, I'm blaming the state for sure on this one. We have to give them 45 days notice. They review our fee schedule. Give them any comments. The prior year, we didn't send it back to the right guys. We had to do it. This is the third year in a row. We have to do it twice. We do our own fee schedule and then we do it. Because they don't they have to publish in their, according to state law, they have to publish in their publication 45 days in advance. Every year I send them a notice in November. They review the fees, they make comments, we make changes. The prior year, I forgot, I sent it to 2 of the 3 contacts, I didn't send it to the 3rd, so we had to redo it this year. For some reason, I sent it to all the right people. They just forgot to publish it. So what happens is after January, when we hold our public hearing, normal public hearing, we ask them to adjust our fees because they control our software. And they say, oh, we haven't done that yet. We haven't published this yet. So now here we are. We had to publish at least 45 days in advance in their magazine. So this is the same hearing. Fees you've already approved. Nobody's ever showed up to the second meeting yet. Yes. But by their rules, we have to have a public hearing. So most likely the public hearing, you'll go through the public hearing script. There won't be anybody here. We'll open and close the public hearing. And unless somebody comes, that's the reason, and protests the fees, then we'd have to basically make some decision, take it to the next council meeting.
Well, they've already done 45 days though now.
They did publish it in their publication that the fee increase. The public hearing will be held tomorrow night.
This is the 2.5%, how is that related to our fee limit?
That's, again, this is in January when you voted the fee increase based on social security increase, it was 2.5%. You've already voted in every one of these fees on that fee increase. We just have to have another public hearing to see if somebody wants to comment on that.
And that is, I know, Macy will have a script for us to go through, which I, okay, great.
Street sweeps next thing.
Street Sweeps Day.
Day.
Award, keep that seat warm, award a bit of street sweeper equipment, page 32 of our packet.
How old was the street sweeper?
That's a high wear piece of equipment. It's a 2012. Think of a piece of equipment that does nothing but pick up rocks and dirt and throw it at itself. Basically is what a street sweeper does, so they wear out. We've done about $45,000 last year in repairs on that, our existing sweepers, so we only have one.
Yeah, for the entire city.
And we sweep ODOT's roadways and ours.
Got a lot of hours on it then, huh?
We do.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Dunham? Okay, all right. After the street sweeper, then we just basically move into any action from executive sessions. I don't believe there is any. We'll have our city administrator's report. I do believe Councilor Hamilton and I will have a committee report. And then we'll go into any comments, other business, and adjournment. So pretty straightforward work session. Mr. Wolf, did you have any other questions for us? I know we're gonna depart with you here soon. We go
Nope.
first.
Nothing from me, Mayor. Thank you and have a good rest of your meeting.
Okay, we'll see you on the flip side. Thank
Okay.
you. All right. So we're gonna go ahead then and go to our next agenda item, which is the North Bend Strategic Planning Session. This is, we have our draft plan. We have our guest speaker here, Sarah, with us. And I'm gonna go ahead and hand the floor over to you, Sarah.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Hello, everyone. Is it possible, will you be able to see my screen if I share it?
Yes, we should.
You've got. Okay, great. I will get us going then. All right. So thanks, everyone, for making time and space in the agenda tonight to focus on picking back up on our strategic planning work. So in terms of our time, we will spend a little bit of time looking back at mission, vision, and values. We did some good drafting work in our last session, and you all gave me some input and feedback on those drafts between sessions. So we'll look back at those. And then I'm hoping we can spend the bulk of the time looking back at each of the priorities and talking through specific success measures and strategic actions. So we got a little bit of input on those areas in our last session, but there's been some good dialogue, some good work done by staff since then. And so we've got some updated content that we'll be reviewing. And then we'll close out by 6:30. And do I have that timing right? Just, is that what you all have for allocated for strategic planning tonight?
I think everybody would be thrilled if it was 6:30.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, so that's my aim. If as long as that aligns for you all as well. All right. So first, just to revisit our team agreements in the context of this strategic planning work. So hoping that everyone can be creative and think boldly. As we have conversations and dialogue about these areas, assume good intent, but also be responsible for impact. I'm hoping that we can have open and trusting conversations and share what needs to be shared. That will encourage curiosity and engagement. That will step up and step back. So really hoping that we can hear from everyone. So please share, but please also make space for others. Any additional team agreements that anyone wants to add to the list for our conversation tonight?
Very healthy list to me. Anybody else?
Okay. Great. All right. So just a reminder of the strategic plan framework that we're building out. So we've got on the left-hand side our vision, mission, and values. There's what we call our strategic clarity elements that define who you are as an organization. We're adding values based on the good guidance and input from you all last time. And so it wasn't necessarily something that we were planning on including, but we've got some good content, I think, there. So we'll add values if you all would like to. And then we'll be looking at the priority areas, success measures, and strategic actions. So those are the areas that are much more specific to this specific strategic plan and length of time, and define exactly what you'll focus on, how you'll measure success, and what you'll do in each of those focus areas. And then just a reminder that this is kind of where we're headed. So when we get to the end of this process and we have your full draft plan, it will look something like this. It will be, designed and formatted differently, but it will outline the vision, mission, values, and then for each priority area, a couple of success measures and strategic actions. And then in terms of our process and where we're at, we are here in plan development session 3, actually ended up taking place in March, or in April, excuse me, but we'll also have our meeting 4 wrapping up with the team. I think they'll primarily be attended by staff because it's a session that's during the day where we'll be closing out with the other 3 cities that are engaged in strategic planning. But the focus there will really be the implementation and moving into that. How do you take the plan and put it into action? So a good place for staff to be focused. And then we'll have your final plan to you by the end of the month as well. So I wanted to start, before we dig in and we start looking at some of the specifics, I got a really great summary from David, and I know he's not here unless he's been able to join you all yet.
Yeah.
What's that?
I said he's not here yet, but he may be. in a little.
Yeah, okay, great. Got some really great summary of some of feedback from staff as they looked at the work and the summary from last time and the draft plan. And so I wanted to start there. And so I will open it if any of the staff want to share on any of these pieces, given that David isn't here, but just going to summarize some of what they shared as they looked at where we landed last time and some potential concerns about the plan. So what I took from that summary was that staff had some concerns about, given the financial constraints, are some of these goals unrealistic? And so pieces that they were looking at were the limitations within the general fund, just knowing that there's challenges in infrastructure funding. There's constraints that you all have around your ability to generate revenue. There's also competing priorities within that context of limited resources. They felt like there might have been an over-reliance in some areas of the plan on external funding or partnerships in order to get the work done. And then given kind of all of this and those constraints, that there might be some implementation risks. Could we actually pull off what this plan is outlining to do? So I wanted to just kind of get grounded in that, and what you're going to see when we start looking at the updated success measures and strategic actions for each of the priority areas, I think, is a new lens on those priority areas with these financial constraints in mind, and hopefully getting to work that is more realistic and more resourceable. So I'm going to step back, though, in case any staff want to chime in and share what came up for you all.
So is there any of the staff that want to come forward?
Yeah, I want to share some of the something. So I think on the financial piece, yeah, it's not the whole, but it's an important thing. But I think getting a lot more specific would help in formulating the direction and like the vision that you have, the missions that are stated, but like being very, very specific on those when it comes to funding priorities, because the general fund is pretty limited in its growth. It's reliant on property taxes for the most part, which are limited. So we're going to go up a little bit, and there's a lot of cost pressure on those, especially in terms of when you get to things like personnel costs and like it starts to encroach on like what really can the general fund do. Right now, it does public safety, it does parks, it does the administration, it does public works. I mean, it does this building, and I mean, kind of all those things are all within that fund. And so the more specific you can be, I think the better direction we'll have when it comes to evaluating each of those types of costs, priorities, all of that sort of thing. I do think that the reliance on external funding and partnerships could be important as well, be helpful to maybe state what those are if we can in some way. We've been successful with grants as external, but that's not a sustainable thing for us to do. So, how can we work with each other here in our area or within our county to achieve cost efficiencies and get services to the citizens that live in our area, I think is really important. I think those financial constraints are real when it comes to looking at just the core services. And we say core services, it would, kind of what are those? We know from our surveys that public safety is really important, but like, what is an adequate public safety look like? What is a superb public safety effort looks like, look like? Kind of knowing what those different levels are too, helps as well. So those are just some of the thoughts that I had, when it comes to the specifics of getting, really more specific or laser focused if we can in the goals and in the success measures in particular. So.
Okay. Is there any other departments that wanted to speak about that?
Anything on infrastructure at all? I think that's a big one too. Like, that's why I'm calling them up
Yeah.
here, because I think that's a really tough one. Because there's really not a lot of resources for infrastructure.
As Jeff mentioned, Public Works is kind of scattered all around. When you all realize we have basically Public Works Administration, Street Department, Wastewater Department. We also have a Stormwater Department, but that's enveloped in the Street Department. So in the general fund, Public Works, probably administration, which includes 5 full-time equivalents, is only funded out of the general fund, I would say on the average 30% or less. I'm 34, Derek Payne's probably the highest at 45. So we're funded through the building department, the administration portion is funded through the wastewater, the street department, stormwater department, building department, and public works. So our staff, administrative staff, which includes the building department, is kind of spread around, and then part of that is put out to the other organizations that, we design sewer projects, so basically billing them for our services. But when we get into infrastructure, so we're gonna ignore the building department, it's self-funded for all intents and purposes, it funds their building permit fees. Recent history, it's been making money. But so you have it down here, and we're actually spend more than we our normal budget in the building department's around 200,000. A low year is around 150,000 in revenue. This year we probably are going to take in 3.25. So that has up and down years, and that balances. More into real infrastructure, wastewater, storm sewer, and street department. We can all cry a river. You're very familiar with the wastewater fee increase, why we needed it. In the street department and the stormwater are basically in the same boat. Again, almost all of our infrastructure was built between 1950 and early 1970s. Our funding levels, because that infrastructure lasts, streets don't last that long normally, but the rest of the infrastructure lasts 50, 60 years. It's not that you could call it deferred maintenance, but really it didn't need any maintenance until it reaches a certain age. It's just, I talked to a person today who had a broken sewer lateral, at least my age. I said, I gave him the same thing. I said, just like us. How many times did you go to the doctor in your first 50 years of life? You probably didn't much. Now we're getting to that age, and that's really where we're at with infrastructure. Funding woes, without getting into it much further on that aspect, it's kind of the same for our infrastructure. We're now at the time we need to repair it. State gas tax is dwindling, which is what we fund our street improvements through. Between EV and higher mileage cars, we're actually going down in revenue. Federal gas tax hasn't been increased since 1993. And it's dwindling again because of, and that's our 2 main fundings for our street is federal gas tax and state gas tax. And so those revenues, the state ODOT's crying because their monies are dwindling. They're having some potential legislative fixes down the road, looking at higher vehicle fees and some other issues, and they're looking up to catching up to the EVs on a road mile tax. But as you well know, inflation has occurred at a tune of about 25% in the last 4 years. overall. I mean, a couple of years were much higher. The last one wasn't bad, but construction's even been worse than the normal. I can tell you our asphalt prices went from 2021 of about 110 a ton for asphalt to 160 last year. So significant increase in our cost of repairs. I don't have a lot of, other than looking for new funding sources, I don't have a lot of things to tell you because the state's working on some. If our charter amendment passes, we can do a push to see what the voters want. But really for streets, there isn't. The good news is the stormwater fund, although it has a lot of deferred maintenance, the stormwater fund is sitting relatively good right now because we haven't had the failures yet. Most of that's a little bit newer than the wastewater system. But 5-10 years down the road, it'll be in the same condition as the wastewater fund. Are there any questions?
I feel like what I'm hearing you and the staff say, and I think we all knew that, like, when we were, I think our city administrator gave us the preamble before we started the strategic planning session, that when we're formulating this, unless we are looking at the things that you mentioned, like, I mean, either one or two things have to happen. We have to figure out to generate some revenue sources, which are very limited on how we can do, or figure out how to cut services, or.
Yeah, and the one thing about your infrastructure is we quit maintaining things. You know, if you want to go back to gravel roads, we can do that. I mean, some of the, as you well know, some of the paved roads are not. I might want to drive a gravel road more than those. And you have to maintain gravel roads too. You have to grade them manually, dust control, other things. That's the reason we pave them. You know, whether we staff or do repairs, they're still going to deteriorate. So they're not something, if you want a livable community, you know, public health safety issues, flooding. I don't know if you saw Jeff sent it around what happened to Burns over the weekend. You know, sewer collapses due to flooding, and they had significant flooding. Those are natural. That was functioned by a natural disaster type thing, but those things happen. And when you know, it's hard. I don't know what they're going to do on their funding. I don't know what their sewer rates are. I haven't looked into that much, but you know, when you have something that's actually a disaster with no reserves.
Has our road always been funded by the gas tax, or what did we do before? I'm not.
Most all of our roads, our collectors, our major streets, repairs have been funded, and our residential, don't get me wrong, but they were originally built as part of a new subdivision. So the original builder and property purchasers paid for that. In the 60s, there were funds called revenue sharing funds that were from the federal government. They helped assist in some of those projects, and there were a lot of what they call local improvement districts. If you look at our records mostly through the 60s, late 50s, 60s, early 70s, people wanted their roads paved. We put a package together. They paid for it against their property tax. They had their roads paved. Most of those roads still exist untouched. I shouldn't say untouched. We sweep them. We patch potholes, but they haven't been overlaid. That type of thing. A asphalt roadway, high traffic. Rule of thumb is 20 to 25 years. It should be resurfaced. Residential roadway isn't so high traffic, 35 to 40. Most of our roadways are 50 to 70 years old and haven't been touched, other than pothole patching.
And we lost some upgrades in the 80s.
And road maintenance is one of those, unless there was a low income or low end, moderate income. And we applied for some of those when I worked here in the 80s. We never got one for a road system. We got one for the senior center. We got one for actually the library. We got one for, I think the library was built in 88. It was through partially through a block grant. we got one for something else, but principal benefit has to be low and moderate income for the block grant.
And I know, I know Sarah has a presentation and I don't want to belabor that, but I feel like as we move through this, like that's what we have to keep in mind. It's like figure out, is there a way to reduce spending? Or
Like, could we go back to revenue sharing, like, what, neighborhoods?
Well, we have an LID fund. And that could be used. We have about $250,000 in that. That's a revolving loan fund. So what it happened in the past when we paved new roads is we lent the money we developed a project, lent the money to the property owners for all intents and purposes, and then assessed a assessment on their property to improve their roadway or improve their system.
And let me ask Sarah, would you rather, like, do you want us to kind of continue to talk about this for the next few minutes, or is there a better place in the presentation? Because I think we're all gonna know where we're at with the financials.
Yeah, yeah.
Let me see what her answers were. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to be going through each of the priority areas and kind of thinking about refining the success measures and then the specific strategic actions in each. So one of those is infrastructure, right? So we can kind of delve in a little bit more deeply there to, given the current financial climate, what is it that we think we need to do in this area in the next 3 years? So I think it would make sense to discuss it in context.
So the specific asks though fall outside how the presentation flows. The specific asks are that you create tiers of goals that are time-based, which is not how the strategic plan is formed. So we need to, as you talk about things, we need to add. Okay, which of these is the most important, or do any of them fall into those tiers? And then the second thing is that I'm a little concerned with this. I totally appreciate the goals are too widespread and have limits, but I don't know that we have enough information unless staff can jump in and out. For making too specific of a suggestion,
Right.
Like that, and I don't think that's our place. I think, we set an arrow and the staff have to let us know how achievable or not it is in that moment. Does that make sense?
It does. It requires work from both ends because many of yours, as you well know, with our limit on fees, council's gonna have to promote and any ballot measures. There are other potential issues out there, but all of them again, for example, franchise fees.
Yeah.
But anything we raise over it's still a fee increase, so there may be some innovative ways. Everybody's in the same boat. It's not just sitting up there. Don't get me wrong. Everybody's in the same boat on these.
I just want to hear earlier rather than later from staff as we go through these, like, that's so high in the sky. No, you know what I mean?
Sarah, does that make sense where we're coming from?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I guess I'm still just thinking about process. Is that something that you think we can talk about when we look at each of the priority areas?
Yeah.
Or do we need to?
Hear from the staff, if they're like, this is not gonna, I think we as a council have to set, like the tiers of the priorities. But if it's not achievable, then we need to know that from staff.
Yeah, well, again, this is a response from the staff saying we have unrealistic goals, so I don't wanna waste the time that I know we didn't waste time, but again, I don't want to go down that path and then back up again potentially.
Yeah.
So I just want to hear.
We need more specifics from them as we go through this.
Yeah, okay.
Hi, Sarah, David
And
here.
let me, Mr. Miller, I know Tim, Councilor Slater's tried to jump in here a couple of times, so real quick, and then we'll go ahead, Mr. Miller.
Well, first of all, I want to say the write-up that we got was really good and specific, pointing out we have a lot of money in each one of the priorities, which will be totally police funded, will be totally this, will be totally that. And one of the things that they brought out was need to take one or two of those as your focus area and priority. And then in the other departments, you come up with some specifics of product and that you want to get out. And so far as working on the funding, here again, and that's part of our role, understanding where it's going at, the things we maybe don't understand, but what's the one or two things you really want to focus on to produce monies, savings, projects, and so forth? And maybe in the others, there are projects to do, which sets it up that way, but it's not really a funding focus thing, because you can't have everything, and we know that.
Okay, so, Eric, or sorry, Mr. Miller, you wanted to jump in here too.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, actually, I could have said it better. So staff really worked hard on this. Sarah and I chatted, last week, and then, we got to see the presentation, and so, staff was able to go over it. We're able to go over it, unfortunately, overnight. We got it yesterday afternoon, but that's all good. And so in the document, you know, we went through where we are up to this point. And my job as a city manager is to listen to the council, but I also know that the implementation falls on me and my department heads. And so as meeting the department heads, we realized that we're all in the same car. However, we're not all going the same direction. We're going against traffic in some areas. And so in the document, page 6 went through very point by point. So we didn't just leave you hanging. We actually brought forth recommendations that you could work with. And so we tried to get this out here as ahead and as early as we could. Staff was told to be prepared to address anything in this document today.
Yeah, thanks, David. And then what I did was take that analysis document and those recommendations.
Okay, Sarah, what were you saying?
Yeah, so then what I did was take the staff's analysis and those recommendations in combination with the feedback that showed up in the survey from everyone, and have in the presentation updated priority areas. Well, the priority areas have not changed, but refined success measures and strategic actions. And so I'm actually wondering, you know, we also have other areas of the plan to look back at, vision, mission, and values. But I'm wondering if we just kind of dig into the meat of things and focus on those priority areas first, and go through them one by one, and can share kind of what came out. And you all can staff can have a chance to share anything they'd want to share. You all can ask them any questions you might have. Would that work for folks? And David, does that sound good to you to just kind of focus there first?
Yeah, and I also want to be mindful, you know, if we don't take a break at some point, the food will get colder. When she comes back with the nice warm roll, that'll be your indication of considering. Yeah. If you all want to eat, you know, cold beans and stuff, that's all fine with
We can
me.
eat when it's hot.
Yeah.
So Sarah, nod and take like a 5.5 minute like dish up food if you don't mind just eating
Of course.
in front of our call here.
Yep, please do.
Okay, all right. So yeah, I'm happy to proceed that way and kind of skip ahead a little bit and, like you said, dig into the meat of this. So if you want to go ahead and continue while our buns are being warmed.
Oh, got it. Okay, great. Yes. So just let me know when we need to pause then, and you all can grab your food. So yeah, so let's dig in. Maybe just kind of a quick orientation to what we're talking about in each of these areas. So we are hoping to set a couple of measurable success measures for each of the priority areas. You're going to see there's kind of a range there. Some of those are very clearly measurable. A little bit are more output based, based on what's being suggested to focus on. So there's a little bit of variety there. But ultimately, we're looking for what are a couple things that would indicate if we are having the impact we want to have in this priority area. So that's what we're hoping for with those success measures. And ideally, just a couple per priority area to keep it manageable for you all, both in terms of tracking and then also in reporting out. And then the strategic actions will get at what are we actually going to do in this priority area. So what are the initiatives or projects that we're going to take on over the length of this plan period in order to reach those success measures? And here we're hoping for a couple, certainly I'd say no more than 5. I think in most places we have closer to 4 strategic actions per priority area. So I'm just gonna get us going then on the first one, if that sounds good. So again, this is based on the feedback and the recommendations that staff put together as in combination. There's some adjustments that were based on what showed up in the survey. So did my best to meld those two pieces. So the first area, financial sustainability. So potential success measures, achieving and maintaining a structurally balanced general fund. So that would be a general fund that can support your core services. Second success measure, implement and sustain a long-term sewer system financial plan. So again, this one's maybe a little bit less of an outcome focus, more of an output focused. Are we able to actually create and then sustain that financial plan? And then potential strategic actions. So first, developing a multi-year financial stabilization plan. So this would be multi-year, include a financial forecast, identifying solutions to those structural budget issues, and then setting clear timelines and expectations for stabilization. Second, implementing a phased approach to the sewer funding. I'm not going to read through the sub-bullets here because that's where I think we can get into the conversation. And then third, prioritize voter-supported funding mechanisms. So there's a lot of opinions and talk, I would say both, from staff and in the survey about the importance of being very deliberate with any use of ballot measures. So really evaluating feasibility before, launching any kind of efforts in that regard. And then fourth, establish a budget reduction framework. So this is where you could map out those tiered reduction scenarios, assess the various service level impacts, and then create criteria for reductions. So curious what anyone would want to add or what questions folks have here.
What's that?
No, we have to do the homework though, at some point, because something will break. Either Dave takes over and then you will get information from us.
Yeah, I mean,
Include the voters that hear
We need to.
okay. Sarah, let's take a pause here for just a few minutes. We'll grab our food and then come back to our stage. You guys think like 5 minutes or so to give Sarah time to refresh her beverage or whatnot. So it's 5:16, so about 5:21 we'll come on back on camera, okay?
Sounds great. Thanks, everyone.
Short recess, I guess, here. Okay. Great. All right, Sarah, are you back with us yet?
Totally gone.
We connect?
Oh, there she is.
Hello. Did y'all get your food? Good.
So thank you. I think pretty much all of us were working right up until the last minute before this meeting today. So it's nice to be able to get something in our bellies really quick as we continue this meeting. So we are at 5:26 right now. We want to make sure we stay on track with everything. So we'll let you take the lead.
Yeah, so I think, our hope, I think tonight is to get as close as we can to having a solid draft of the plan that then we can continue to refine as we need to, virtually and in between sessions. But so would love to get folks' reactions to this content for financial sustainability as a priority area. I do want to address some of what came up in the staff's feedback and in that analysis document as it relates to prioritization, sequencing, action steps. All of that we see happening more in the implementation phase. So I am not expecting that we would get to that level of detail, certainly tonight, or in the strategic plan document itself. So what I would love to be able to do is finalize this content as much as possible. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so like, for example, now, are you saying we then take the next few moments to look at those strategic actions and see if we need to like reframe them at all?
Yep, both the success measures and strategic actions, any suggested reframes, rewrites, removals, additions in this financial sustainability priority area.
And I had heard Councilor Jones say something, I think right before we went to break, about like, for example, number 2, you had made a comment about like implement a phased approach to sewer funding. So because of the way the current charter is, we can't raise the fee, but we can still approach.
We have kind of, to me, we have kind of different set of that measure. And what it means is, I mean, staff, when whatever catastrophic failure happens, that system is taken over by state law. If staff doesn't keep planning, doesn't, they still have to keep on top of, this is our priorities. So, I mean, I could be wrong. We can't leave that off just because we can't do what we want. I don't know, does that make sense? We'll get a David right now. Or is it just the council that's coming on with that?
No, I mean, if staff thinks otherwise, the department heads can jump in. Right now, the reason the finance director is here is because this is financial stability, so really, this is his bailiwick. I mean, he's talked with all the department heads, and so we see, this is sort of kind of his primary area.
So, like, we need to ask Mr. Dunham, how would we rephrase that then, implement a phased approach to sewer funding? Are you comfortable with the way that that's written, or?
That's what your phases are, right? Your system, for the current sewer rates, eventually, if we don't increase our sewer rates by some methodology, A, we're setting ourselves up risk wise, and B, what we're gonna do is fall further and further north. So financial stability of, again, it's aged to a point where it's getting critical. Can we make do for 4 or 5 years? Probably. But we can reduce our services. We don't have a lot of add-on services, but I can give you a couple examples. One is we video. You just allowed us to buy a lateral camera, which isn't only for the homeowners, but we go in because we own the sewer to win 25 feet of the main line, lateral, 30 lateral. We're inspecting that in the homeowners at the same time when we have an issue. But we do offer a free service so people can see what condition their system is in. We can cut that out. We could do what the city of Coos Bay does, and they don't even maintain the laterals. Service laterals are all maintained by private property. There are steps to make. You want to maintain the current level of service? Unless we achieve additional funding, we just can't. I mean,
Yeah.
So
just like I said, gas tax. I mentioned the federal gas tax. In 1993, they went to 8.5 cents a gallon. What that bought us in 1993, the money they gave us, what that's buying us today was about 35% of what they could build with that. So if we don't increase, and we do have some inflation built into it, I think the charter amendment, but if we don't increase, we just go up.
Maybe instead of implement anything, maybe for the sewer funding, we get a plan of the things that you can cut out and how much that gets us.
I was gonna say, explore steps to reduce services if the funding remains the same, was what I was thinking. I mean,
If we cut services, if that's something that council has to say yes or no to.
Yes.
Because maybe that's the level, okay, so that's the level that we don't wanna go too far into doing your business. But we need to know how to give you direction.
Correct.
Okay, so maybe, develop a scorecard for services.
Certain things are
We do
required by
Click
law.
up, click up,
We
yeah,
have to do. We
Yeah.
cannot not do those, but
Yeah.
certain things are an add-on values that
Yeah.
we do because we're nice to our citizens.
Yeah.
yeah, so maybe if we can get a scorecard.
And
of
we
things
can
that
also
cut.
prioritize things. You can scale if you go out for a sewer rate increase, you can put it over a longer period of years. What you have to realize is, even though it's gentler, the ultimate cost, just the more you delay it, the ultimate cost just gets higher and higher.
Yeah.
It may staging something over a 10-year increase as opposed to staging over a 3-year, and 10 years down the road is probably 20% higher than it would have been implemented in 3 years.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess, I don't want to step into the implementing, and we wanna know clearly what our choices are for things that we can do.
Yeah.
And then the plan goes from there, so we can, let's work hard or something.
Yeah, there are things that, I mean, services that we are providing right now. For instance, the value added camera service. That's time, that's, we maintain the equipment, but that's time and expense. But at some point you have to start pulling back where you can. It's fascinating, we talk about levies, fees, things like that. It's amazing how much whack-a-mole we get back just by taking nothing off the table, but just saying, hey, we want to offer you insurance to protect yourself, because we're the same. I wish I could get that level of insurance to cover our lines that they go, but can't. But when you recognize how old the systems are, and so those are the levels of conversation, that's really the base conversation. I mean, my neighbor, I'm in Coos Bay, but my neighbor's had Roto-Rooter out like 4 times. I'm like, see that tree there? That's your problem. And so when that goes kaput, you'll wish you had the insurance. That's the reality. And we happen to be interconnected with theirs, and our system is just fine. But and it better stay that way. And but those are the dialogues. You just can't maintain status quo at this point. I mean, it's like, quite frankly, when we start talking budget workshop, I'll be talking about, if you're going to use the chambers moving forward and you're not the city council and the planning commission or city, you need to be renting this. It costs all this camera, we maintain the lights, we maintain all the equipment. We have to, we can charge rent, but I can't create a fee. So we have to come to you all with logical, understandable ways. And God bless Jeff and the department heads. I mean, we've been working, for months on trying to get a budget to the point that we can even present it. with everything that is going on,
Yeah.
so.
Catch that,
So
Sarah?
so this language might not be perfect yet. If anyone has any specific edits, we can make them now, but I just adjusted it to move away from implementing and more focusing on assessing options or mapping out scenarios. Does that sound like the right general adjustment there?
Yeah, I
Would we
mean,
take it out of the success measure too?
I'm sorry, what?
Would we take it out of the success measures too, the implement and?
Oh, yep, good point.
I mean,
Do you want to take it out altogether? Or
no, I think it has to be part of the plan. We need a plan of what we're gonna do.
Well, the
Yeah.
other thing, success measures, like a plan is a sketch. And we definitely want. It's kind of like the idea of shovel-ready projects. Who has shovel-ready projects? That's insane. How can I plan before I know, right? But that's actually what all of this stuff is. There are shovel-ready projects. We need staffers to keep thinking. So there's already a plan, right?
So
There's
then I guess
already
we
a
can
plan.
then implement the financial plan might be okay,
Yeah,
it just depends on what the plan is.
yeah.
We have multiple
Staff.
plans and contingencies. However, they're contingent on lots of things happening, like
Yeah,
state law changing.
yeah.
Or constitutional amendments changing.
Yes.
Or voters automatically saying, hey, we're going to start allowing fees. And so that's why we're in this together. I mean, none of this is easy. And so, but we don't want staff, sort of on a hamster wheel, if you will, if they're not going to be able to achieve anything,
Yes,
on those
Yes.
goals.
yes.
And that's why the hands were raised.
So
Yes.
is there something in here as a staff recommendation that needs to come out or be added in this section?
I have one small change in this section, and it has to do with success measures. And I'm just gonna throw out the idea of italicizing core services to make it something that we need to actually go and define and need help from you defining like what those core
Yeah.
services are.
Okay.
Cause it'll help with a common understanding when we say core services, then we'll have an idea of what that, cause what I think that is might be very different from what you think it is. And so just having it italicized as a placeholder for now, they'll leave work later on, but at least we know, hey, this is something we gotta pay attention to and define further.
okay, yeah,
Still want the notes about what we generally mean. It's definitely public safety. It's definitely administration and finance. So it's such as, but it's something we'll clarify.
Yeah, Counselor Slater?
Yeah, I was wondering in this financial sustainability success measure. Could that be where we talk about passing the charter amendment, which would allow us then to have the people that vote actually determine what the rates are, to make that measure, which enables us to implement a lot of these other things.
It shouldn't be a success measure on the staff, because that's up to the voters. It's definitely a success measure. If we can get an election where people say, oh, yes, we should just have it be a simple majority, that's a win. But that's not something they have control over.
You have.
Well, you can work on it.
Yes, you have the home rule authority to propose. Or even do a comprehensive review of your charter, you have lots of choices. I think that I know that there was a plan in the last, with the current goals that are still in place, until the new ones are in place, of a charter review. However, if you were on the council for the prior 2 years, you'll understand why we never got to that.
Yeah.
We literally spent most of our time and expense on legal. We never got to some of the core work that the council should have been focused on. No fault to the majority of the council. That's the reality.
Okay, any other changes? Things that we need to take off here, add in?
So I have a question about the, ballot measures. And, you know, I could be off base here, but my feeling is that we have to have ballot measures about finding every single time, regardless of what. I mean, we can we can be like, yeah, this is the most important one to ask, but I feel like as long as that measure is in place, and we don't have, the funding mechanisms we used to have, that we have to put up ballot measures. Okay, we said no to this one.
Does that have to do, are you going to put something in here?
No, well, it has to do with prioritizing voter supported funding. So that's
So you
what
wanna take it out or you wanna?
No,
put it in?
no, no,
Oh,
what
okay.
I'm saying is.
Because right now
do
we're
we-
focusing on.
Yes.
Words of this.
Well, yes, and so what I'm wondering is if people are on the same page about that, is that, you know, yes, we evaluate
As far as-
feasibility, but we still have to keep putting them on.
Yeah,
Right,
So-
even if we know something's not gonna pass, we still have to keep.
Yeah.
Putting it up, something up to show that we're not making our ends meet.
anything else to add to the strategic plan, or was that just a moment of
I'm just
saying?
wondering if people are on the same page about that.
This people, our council?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I mean, I don't think we have to make that decision tonight if we're gonna forever do that, but yeah. Yeah.
You can't stop, you have to.
I think we can talk about that each time. Okay, let's, if there's nothing else to add here,
Well, this is your last chance on this one.
or anything else that you feel,
So we'll just, we'll go to 30 pages.
Well, prioritization is the key here. There are steps. I think when you're talking about putting things out to the public, they need to know you need to know what their priorities are and your priorities. Sometimes they don't match because everybody expects when they close it, that it's gonna go away.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think you can, if we just keep throwing ballot measures out, especially if they have a slim chance. They need to see, you need to prioritize. And along with your priorities, push those ballot measures through based on your priorities, whatever they may be. I know what mine are, they don't have to be yours. But, I think we can't just throw ballot measures without support. We just talked about this. As you all know, we already filed our ballot titles. Staff can't do any public promotion of any of that. Once that ballot measure is filed. So that's kind of on, you have to understand that's on either forming packs outside of the city or on yourselves. Once that ballot title is filed, staff has to sit on its hands as far as supporting.
I think this was brought out here earlier, having one or two priorities that ballot measure wise. Of course, the main thing is to get the charter changed, you know, to enable that to go, and I think we've got a good basis to talk about that. But then as we talk about having one or two priorities, of that group of 4 or 5, you really ought to spend only 1 or 2 to people. Because if you put 5 people will glaze over, it'll be no on everything.
Really?
yeah. So on here, you know, we have, some, you know, this, let's see, where did it go? Number 3, evaluate feasibility of ballot measures and fee for service charges. Prioritize options and then engage the educate community. So these are prioritized voter supported funding mechanisms. So again, these are really broad. Do we want anything specific? I know that there's gonna be, say the funding models are like just the same. Nothing changes, nothing gets changed at the legislative level or with ballot measures, then there is going to have to be some really difficult decisions made. And I feel like, should there be something else in here that tips the hat to what those could be? So like something as specific as like, do we need to look at a fire district? Do we need to look at a Parks and Recs district? Do we need to explore some sort of shared services for districts to reduce funding? Like, do you want, if the staff was saying, these are, you know, they're like the none of the things are gonna be able to be achieved because of where we're at funding. do we need to have some very specific things in there about that, or do you want to keep it more broad?
I mean,
So
That's right.
that's exactly what you have here. I mean, here you have actions that are strategic. These are the things that sort of encompass those actions of the implementation side to achieve those. And that's why they sort of are in tandem, if you will. And then making sure that we really understand, is this your priority area? And if so, what are the core strategic areas? So that staff then gives you the ways that, potentially we're going to get them implemented.
So you're talking about this printout here that says North Bend.
Yeah, so if you go to number 6.
Number 6.
Yeah, number 6, which is,
Practical recommendation.
Okay, so this is what you're suggesting that we put up here and then take that into strategic
I
action,
thought Sarah did.
or. I feel like I'm hearing a couple different things. Do we want to be specific or not?
no, I'm trying to respond to the mayor's. So, all right, 6 is practical recommendations, okay? So, you have like the 1, 2, 3. So get past the overarching recommendations, get down to priority specific recommendations. So you see priority 1, that matches up to your priority area 1 at the bottom of that page. You then see priority 1, financial sustainability, so that matches up with what Sarah's got here. You then see number 1, develop a and then under that, you have 3, 4, 5, which is, and then you get to the big 5, then you have the small 6, 7, 8, then you get to the 9, which is the big 9, and then you got 10, 11, 12 under. So it's threading, if you will. This is the sort of synopsis of those big areas, the strategic actions.
But Sarah, you went through this, didn't you, and put some of these into this is what you kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this one in particular is primarily based on what you're seeing in the staff analysis document. So, yeah, it doesn't have them bulleted out. It's more of a summarizing statement about what would happen there. And then knowing when you get into the implementation phase, there's going to be, a series of action steps and timelines that are mapped out for each of these.
So for Jeff, how do we make this slide that we're giving you sort of map more closely to the bullet points that you provided? Or is it achieving what you had hoped? Is there less ambiguity? Is there more actionable in this slide?
I don't think
This is
this
so
isn't
hard.
No.
the document though, that would be like the strategic plan. I'm guessing, Sarah, like this is sort of like the outline. The actual document would have like these subcategories.
Yeah.
It's not like, it's just this. Maybe we should let her finish the presentation.
Well, what we usually produce in terms of the strategic plan, and I can kind of go back to this example here, is very high level. So it would be more the level of what you're seeing here on this slide. And then the level of detail in terms of sequencing and prioritization and action steps and, who's going to do what by when, it would be work that the staff would be doing and follow up to develop that detailed implementation and action plan.
We just need to be clear that like maybe that's what the final product is looking like, but then the supplemental plan with the steps and the things that are in here.
Yeah, the supplemental stuff, the steps, that's where you hand it off to staff.
Okay,
That's for us to implement.
okay.
The council's got to come up with its ultimate priority 1. These are the 2, 3, 4 things that it wants us focused on. And then it's staff's responsibility to take it from there. And so we've taken Sarah's work several steps further as working as we're collaboratively talking internally.
Let's take a look at, let's maybe go on to the next one, the priority 2. Whatever the next slide,
Jeff, this is helpful.
and yeah,
Yeah, right here.
don't go too far.
I just say right here.
Okay, great. Yeah, so let's look at public safety. So for public safety, some potential success measures. So achieving sustainable funding for public safety, reducing crime and fire incidents. Or another one that was suggested via the survey would be a higher public satisfaction level with police and emergency services. That would require some way of measuring that public satisfaction, which I don't know if you're already doing that. If you're not, we would want to acknowledge that that would be additional work, you know, to design and measure public satisfaction. So I am curious, just while we're here, is that something you're already measuring?
Yes,
We,
right?
we did the, various community surveys. And so we did that with the ARPA funds. So we went in, that was a statistical survey. And so the Las Council was part of their goal, their thing. We did the police survey and went very deep on that, which the staff has and that we're working from. And then, we as a team have the overreaching community, survey.
Okay. So it sounds like you do have baseline data, but just want to flag if you go with a success measure like that, that would require, you know, some kind of annual or biannual implementation. And as you maybe just stated, David, you've used ARPA funds or other funds to do that in the past, that, you know, may or may not be available going forward. So that's just something to consider with that one.
And so that you know, there were other techniques that we also used. We didn't just use surveys. Although we have used it, when we went through the whole town hall process,
Yeah.
of an interactive town hall, that was a great way where you got over 1,000 people talking to you and with you for a solution.
For sure.
And I would still hold that what we accomplished with that, probably the best in the state.
So one of the things that, struck me looking at the recommendations twofold was the ideas that we're putting forward as the strategy are things like full health. And what does that mean? And those are really obvious questions, you know, those are great questions. But, there's a consideration here, and one of the things for police in particular that I thought about was, we know we have grant funded programs, and so that's one way we know we're not meeting our goals. But, the other thing is, how many people will be on a base force, you know, so, and if we're already at a minimum of 2 people per shift, you know what I mean? I just wanted to get better ideas about,
You want a definition of fully funded or full?
well, that's what we're being asked,
Yeah.
to find fully funded, and, you know, what do we have now?
You're more than welcome to bring up your chiefs, because that was one of the comments that came back. It's like, well,
What does that mean?
what does that mean, fully
Yeah,
funded?
yeah,
And so it's like, we have wants, we have needs, we had baselines, and so
Yes.
if advanced staff wants to come up, you know, and get Jeff on the hot seat, he appreciated it.
Should we, well, okay,
it was just in the staff.
Yeah, it's just not in one of our measures, so I didn't know if that would be, again, they wanna know what that defined is, but it's not, but then we do.
It was,
And then we took it out, and we took it out.
well,
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah.
So Sarah, really worked over the last several days with staff.
Yeah.
To get us here,
Yes.
and so,
Previously, we had said.
but, yeah.
let me ask the quick question. I'm curious what the chief says is your definition fully funded? Is it to the, whatever you probably have some standard of recommendation on how many police officers that you want you're supposed to have? Is it that standard, or what do you have? What is your definition of fully funded?
I think they-
And then,
Well, I definitely don't want to say that what we have right now is like, you know, the way I see it, this is the absolute minimum that
Yes,
we need.
yes.
And at the 18 positions that we're at right now, and some of those being grant funded, I think that that's the absolute minimum. And to go backwards after we fought so hard to get to where we are right now, after the last few, 4 or 5 years, that we've been in this fight, I think that we can't go back to where we were. We've gotten to a level that I think is a great. I don't like to rely totally on stats, I would rather rely on what the public opinion is, and that seems to be like the biggest hurdle or challenge that we have, is like not using the audience out here as an example, but getting that type of feedback. And building on those things, but those positions, and I think a lot of things right now that we're looking at, we've accomplished a lot, not just in the staffing, but in the equipment that we've had, the vehicle fleet from the previous strategic plan, and getting that down. And now with the adding of the enterprise fleet system is another thing that has allowed us to be more effective in purchasing these vehicles, and hopefully to see the return as we sell these vehicles when we're done with them. I think there's a lot of things that we're going to realize as far as cost savings there, that hopefully is going to help mitigate some of these shortfalls that we're at. But I think 18 for the current moment, I mentioned that we really need to have a full-time narcotics position in our agency, but that's kind of where it would be. But again, that's an ask. And have we been able to do it? Yes, we have been able to do it, but I know that there's a lot more to be done out there that we can do.
So, and we have 3 grant funded or 4?
Jeff, I don't know if you can. Not counting the schools, we have at least one. We have some that are sharing, but I would say it'd be safe to say that we have at least probably 1, if not 2 of those positions. And then we have the SRO positions for the schools.
I mean, this is just this is rough. So I feel like we're at 3, 4, 5 that are grant funded.
Technically, you could say that.
Okay, yeah, okay. And the reason that seems important to me. This is forming the little table, the little checklist to me, is our absolute minimum for the city that we have, and it doesn't grow much, is 18. We know that we're 3 to 5 short of paying for that. And then we know that because of the, behavior we'd like to mitigate in the city, that an additional narcotics officer would greatly add to that force. So to me, that's starting to form a real clear picture of how far off we are from being able to minimally fund a police force that can manage what's happening at West better. And we've made incredible strides, but to me, that's the gap. To me, that's the most important gap. We are at a baseline already, and we're not able to fund it. So.
And I want to also just add, those are the 18 police officer positions that we have.
Yes.
Okay, not including the records, evidence, community service officer.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
Fire chief?
Well, I think we've been putting into place a program that I think is really showing itself. By the ARPA funds that we've spent, we've been able to obviously reduce some of our overall materials and services side. I think that's been a great asset to us by responding our smaller vehicles when we're able to. It's lowered our fuel costs. And obviously reduced our maintenance cost. And we saw that it was substantial when we ran the numbers a month ago. It was like 70% reduction in our maintenance of the equipment. And so by that, we're saving our money. We're also looking, we have to have 2 people on per shift just for safety factors. Now, to keep those 2 people on for shift, we have to have 3 per shift because we have vacations, we have sick, and we have also had a number of injuries. We had an entire shift of 2 people wiped out in one day on August 20th. I remember that day for a long time. And then we have to have people to backfill that. And if we don't have those 2 people per shift, we are just not able to provide the safety that we need. So right now we have a total of 12 people on the books, and that is our number that we need. That includes that includes our administration as well.
So
And we don't have any office support. We've been on a shoestring budget for years. We've tried to make the most out of the least. And it kind of bites us a little bit in a situation like this because we have went the extra mile to be as conservative as possible with our finances and do everything we can ourselves. And we've proven that we can do that. When the situation comes up like this, it is a challenge for us as well.
Sure, yeah. So what I'm hearing from you is that fire staffing is also an absolute minimum.
We are down where it would be really challenging to lose anyone else in this.
And, so I'm the administrator, so this probably won't be the most pleasant. The bulk of all calls are medical.
Yeah.
The medical calls. When you realize that there's only a couple ambulances available to you at any given time, means that it's a matter of life and death as to how fast we get to you. Okay, and so whether it's police or fire as combined, they both have different levels of training. Are there different ways or methods? The fire department is trying to pick up volunteers. This is other than asking Haley to get her library folks to come volunteer and be firefighters too. I mean, because that's the only area that's like really getting a state consistent with volunteers. I mean, that's the reality. And so I hear folks say, well, let's go to the volunteer fire department. Well, let me tell you what that's like. If folks will sleep at your department, great. Otherwise, you get some of these other areas where they call and they come from their house. My wife is a perfect example. We were at the Big K Ranch and the first vehicle arrived was a little red light on the top. And it was in his pickup truck. He came from home. Okay. And then we waited for the rig. That's a volunteer fire department, that's the reality. And so again, mindful that our population here is aging, and what is the level of service that you believe is acceptable and sustainable within the confines of the budget, and that allows us to make changes. I mean, the chief will tell you, I've made no real aggressive pushes to try to replace a ladder truck that I know we cannot afford. Okay. And so, in fact, the other day I was thinking, we just need to sell this thing and get what we can out of it. Those are brain hair, when I'm driving down the road saying, because I could take that money and put it towards another pumper or potential rafts. And let Coos Bay come here, with theirs. But Coos Bay is not any better financial. I mean, one of the pieces of data I sent you, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but whether or not you recognize those pension numbers, they were like 280% of bank, which means payroll, which means they hit the state's list at the 200% level. I believe we're somewhere in the 70s. Yeah, we're in the 70s. That means that for their entire annual payroll, you multiply that 289% times, 2.8 times that, and that's their liability just on their pension. Okay. We're fortunate that we've had good councils that are very, fiscally responsible and conservative, so we don't have any debt. But we're also to the point here that we're also no longer cash rich. And so, and I know I'm not the happy camper here, but I've already asked and I'm getting sort of a price structure on what it will cost to sell the community center. And I'm going to be bringing that to you in the budget, as well as all of our other available properties. We have to make some changes here. But the fascinating thing is, it was about $1 million cut, then about $700 million cut. And collectively, I think that we have figured out a lot internally that we will bring you, where we will get past this year, but we can't just keep continuing. We seriously are going to have to do certain things. And so we think we have a plan and strategy for getting us there. So that's why this plan is more critical to us and the livelihood of the employees and the services we provide to the community. You know, now I think I more understand, you know, when Mr. Owen, when he was in the public Parks Department, you know, one of the things he says, he's like, well, you know, I was told that I'm not essential, okay? Well, parks is a huge part of economic development. When you come over that bridge, who do you think mows the lawn? Who picks up the, you know, it's like all of these are critical positions to the economy, but then economic development doesn't pay for itself. So no fault of your own. And that's part of trying to educate the public. And so we do the strategic plan. Yes, this is hard work. God bless you. These folks are out there. I was proud of our entire team this morning. The training that we executed, okay? We made it happen. We were in the water. We were covering everything. We were there. Plus supplying donuts and coffee. You know, that's full round services that you would not get, you know, with cutting the departments, but at some point you may have to.
All right, I want to make sure that we stay on track, and I don't know if we're gonna be able to make our 6:30 suggested deadline. Sarah, how did you want to proceed?
Yeah, I mean, I want to support you all to have the conversations that you need to have. And I think also I want to help you produce a strategic plan. So I am interested in kind of going through each of these priority areas and understanding, does this feel like the right work, you know, for the staff to be focusing on in the coming 3 years? I think that's kind of the major question in my mind. You know, like little bits of wordsmithing can always happen in follow-up, but at the core, does this feel like the right work, the right way, places to put energy and effort?
That's your question to us. Does it feel like the right?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah, my thing is just, you know, the slide represents an arrow or two. Does it make your choices worse or easier? If they make your choices harder, what can we change the language and the energy specific so that we don't lose your choices?
I know we were looking at our budget already, and we went through some preliminary things, and we're looking at our materials and services inside, and we are doing some honest evaluations, looking at historical expenditures, and really trying to save some finances on that side as well. And we're doing what we can to lower that. You know, and then, like I said before, we've tried by doing some innovative thinking on our responses. So we're doing what we can to lower that side down as much as we can.
So I guess the question too is, do we want to focus on the reduced crime and fire instances, or like, do we want to take out the or, do we want to add the or, do we rather, like, cause you, police chief mentioned that you do want public satisfaction, like in the police department, that's something that you mentioned that you're passionate about, so like, if that's something you'd rather us focus on potentially than reduction of crime and fire instances. We don't want that.
To be honest with you, I think that would be probably either swap them as far as a level of priority or not. And the problem is we spend a lot of time getting out there and making ourselves known that we're there, both departments, and through our traffic stops, and just trying to create a really strong presence. But that also causes another thing to happen to where people are more prone to call when they feel really confident about a response. And I think we've seen that in the overall numbers of calls for service that I provided to you each year. That number doesn't go down, it goes up. And so I think that's, you know, I don't think that's probably a realistic success measure for those crime and fire incidents to go down.
And I agree 100%.
Okay,
I agree 100% in that, because we've also done our we went out and did our brush mitigations, and by doing that, we've actually lowered down our fire responses. But is it going to continue to go down? I don't think so. Are we going to?
I understood the reduce, like you come up with statistics of all sorts, you know, through that, and which that sort of fits. I couldn't fit in reduce fire incidents, as you were mentioning. Medical is going to get it gets bigger each year.
Yep, and that's
unless we're just simply talking about fire education, which you do a lot of fire education and that type of thing. That's not a real sustainable piece, or the one on the bottom with higher public satisfaction with so and so. However you want to measure that is more realistic than.
Yeah, I think you can't really base it off that. I think you're exactly correct, because I don't think
Yeah,
that the call volumes play the part.
especially for public safety. I mean, the presence in the public is the most powerful mitigating source you have. And you do get into a situation where you can't tell if there's reduced crime or reduced incidents because people are calling in more frequently. Like we can't tell the difference between those things. So yeah, let's get that out.
Okay,
I mean,
yeah, so,
but.
And I also, the term public satisfaction, I don't know if that's the word that we want to use. Because I feel like we have a pretty high public
Yes.
satisfaction in both these departments, quite frankly.
Mm.
Like confidence,
maintain, like,
confidence is fine, but the biggest thing that we need the public's input.
Right,
more
yeah.
And a way to gauge that, yes.
Want to please escort every day to their car. I don't know.
If the public's not satisfied, then there would be a lot more people here. I guarantee that.
Right. Okay, as far as, okay, so the strategic actions, as we know, we know this slide is like the high level, but there's like the supplemental piece of more specific things that are gonna.
And we've already.
Because I mean, that overall arching goal of achieve sustainable funding for public safety, that's our Councilor Jones. And, but there's gonna have to be A through C on what that will look like, depending on what the funding levels of the city.
Yeah, it's almost like you know, the checklist of, here's the absolute minimum, here are the core services, here are the things that we have to do now. And have that checklist.
Yeah, because they'll come to us at some point and say, although we have the standard of what we want, we don't have the funds to pay for it anymore. And the number one thing is it has to be sustainable. We can't have a $2 million gap in the budget. So they would have to make some choices because we would.
I also think we're in a weird time where like our partnerships are more important than ever because everybody's in the same sort of funding crisis, so.
Yep.
Yeah, anything else that we need to add to this slide before we go to the next priority, add or take away? Okay, and we'll get to revisit this one more time.
It's just, it's most important to me that it's meaningful, this chapter, and not meaningful in the sense of, you know, like, so.
But that's why they did this and then this one is there, like, they did this down.
And we're putting.
So let's take a look at, Sarah, are you ready to move on to priority 3?
To the left.
Improvement?
okay, great. Yeah, so infrastructure improvement. So potential success measures here, increased walkability score, reduced road repair cycle by to a certain number of years. Or another one that came in through the survey was fewer road closures, outages, or service disruption. And then strategic actions. And again, these are, based on the staff input and then the survey. Create a tiered infrastructure priority system. Establish a dedicated infrastructure funding strategy. Educate and engage residents in infrastructure improvements. And then maximize external funding opportunities. Questions, thoughts, suggestions on infrastructure improvement?
Hit like 1 through 4. I think this one probably is like this whole slide is one of my biggest struggles as far as it's why you have so much delayed maintenance over the years, because the other stuff, people feel like you gotta take care of fire, you gotta take care of police, and we'll take care of the, it's working this year, so we'll take care of the roads and all that next year. It's like why we have inherited, this council has inherited so much delayed maintenance. And so it's when I look at this, establish a dedicated infrastructure and funding strategy, to me that needs to be like number 1. we have to figure out a way to get some other revenue coming in to do any of these things. I don't know if, yeah, I mean, a success measure, obviously, if we increase our walkability score, that would go up. And so I can see why you would have those in there, but I'm just trying to figure out. The number one focus in this area has to figure out how to fund these things. And then does anybody else have another thought on that?
There's a nice transportation bill going on in the legislature for like, which would change fees and things in a variety of ways, continuing the 50-30-20 distribution that way. So the state is looking at making more money available, especially for roads and things.
And so that's where it's like, it feels like writing this, there's a lot of like, if this happened and maybe, and hopefully.
Yes.
There, I would even say like that lot where it says maximize external funding opportunities, I just put that too.
Yeah, okay. Mhm.
Feels like you can't move forward to anything else, like our Maslow's hierarchy of needs here is like, we need more funding. We gotta find funding.
Aren't we already kind of reduced our road repair cycle though, because we're doing like, we're just stepping up, are only using the money that we have to. Like, I don't know how we can reduce it more.
Well, is that was just like how if that goes down, then we know that's how we're measuring our success. Mr. Dunham.
Our success measures, I could argue with, I think the strategic actions, other than possibly number 4, are well written and because if you're dedicating staff time to research and do all these things, you got to do the work, the maintenance to begin with. And again, you've heard it time and time again, we're not overstaffed. I like to say, and I can't say absolutely today, but Coos Bay's 70% bigger than we are. 170, 17,000, we're 10,700. Their public works admin staff is between 16 and 17 people. We're 4, we want to be 5.
Well, yeah.
We actually tried to hire somebody, but it didn't work out. So again, that's the only reason I'm picking on number 4 is your staff either have to do physical, what I'm going to say physical things, keep everything in motion, or they take away time to research. And not that we don't do any, as far as making it it's a lower priority, but as far as making that a dedicated specific. Now, walkability, the whole nation is trying to make things more walkable. There's actually grant funds out there for that.
I think that is, are you talking about number 4 before that we had it, like the research part? Because you changed it to our number 2.
To the one on the screen.
The number 4 that's on the
Yeah,
screen.
they've changed them around as we've been talking, so.
I just want to make sure
you're-
that we're deleting.
Sorry about that.
This is Harry Potter, your paper did not update like real time.
Okay.
So you're
That
talking about-
screen did, so
Okay.
come over to the other screen
You're
here.
talking about dedicated staff time to
Yeah,
research.
you called that right, thank you.
Yeah.
That's,
I apologize for
No,
that.
that's okay.
because he keeps highlighting 4, he's talking about 2,
I'm
and,
like,
yeah, thank you.
It doesn't mean we're not already doing this, I guess is what I'm saying.
yes.
You have. I would have kept it at 4, and even that's. Not that we don't have to research and look for other things. It's just, we're not overstaffed. So the walkability, we have been consistently applying for grants, having to do with it. ODOT is going to do some upgrades. In case you didn't know, I know it was almost $1 billion lawsuit to do ADA ramps. That's the reason you see all ODOT doing a lot of ADA ramps. They have 10 years, and they are actually looking at their highway. We've actually talked to ODOT. Our starting point was 30 million. They wanted us to take over State Highway 540, which is Virginia from 101 to 711, Broadway from 711 to Newmark, and Newmark to from the new Marathon gas station to city limits. They have talked Coos Bay into that. Coos Bay got about 23 million to take over Ocean Boulevard, and they've been lucky with Ocean Boulevard so far. Newmark, I think, is coming to bite them here pretty soon.
In the words of the previous city manager, they wish they had not done that. They would have been better off if they invested. I mean,
There's things out there, there's strategies, I guess, in pointing that out. That was our minimum starting to talk was 30 million. We thought it'd probably be higher than that, but regardless.
I told them 100 million. I did when they came, I told them 100 million, and I'll get to you.
But reduce our road repair cycle, I think we're talking about road resurfacing. Reducing road repairs, we could be doing that by resurfacing roads. But we don't have technically a road repair cycle other than specific roadways. And when we resurface them.
Evaluation.
And there are some methodologies I brought before council. I think 5 years ago. Now AI, this was when AI was new, for $7,200. I think we could have somebody video every bit of our streets and do a pavement evaluation, which our latest pavement evaluation was actually in 2020 that we're still following. We're still trying to get that 5-year plan complete, and we haven't got that complete yet because we just don't have the monies. So you have done a lot of this. You've prioritized road repairs specifically. Staff primarily has prioritized wastewater repairs and that type of thing. And we're not giving you the dirty pictures from the camera to do the priorities there from our closed circuit TV cameras that inspect the sewers. In our storm sewer, we did a master plan. And so that's supposed to be done here this year. So you'll have this prioritization. And I think all these actions are good.
We'll get rid of the or fewer road closures, outages, and service disruptions.
That's,
I think that
realistically, the more repair work we do, the more road closures we have. And a lot of these, what's an outage? That's usually the power company, not us. I'm not picking on it. I'm just saying. Half our road closures are other utilities failures.
Yeah.
They're not the city of North Bend's utilities failures.
So a little perspective. In fact, the county's urban renewal agency, so infrastructure. 3.5 million to overlay and fix a road not in.
Trans-Pacific Parkway.
Exactly, Trans-Pacific Parkway. Wait, and it's gonna cost you about another 1.5 million, give or take. So, although it has not been very well received because we're in the economic development business and our urban renewal agency is actually owning and generating revenue. I see these things that say, how are we gonna come up with money when you can't get fees, you can't get taxes, you can't get anything? And so that's where we've been very, very creative. We actually are starting and the rent's offsetting things. The annex project was estimated off the backs of the renters that would be there to generate between $700,000 to $1 million a year, which would have allowed us to keep putting money in the district, and so we are looking at strategies that will do good work. We're still getting whack-a-mole off the fact that we own, but I asked someone the other day, I had a survey and said, all right, who owns BLM? They're like federal governments in the airport. Who owns the, police headquarters? Oh, state police. No, that's the airport. Who owns the DHS building? They're like, state government, airport. And they all get rent. They're doing the same thing. And all that money goes in to support the airport in the district for which all the taxpayers pay into. And so we try to keep using these examples to inform folks we're doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing under the law and generating funds to stay afloat. But at what point does that message and so the educate, is sort of dragging, a horse to the trough and asking them to drink water. It's like, okay, so I love the fact that Albert, when he's out on working projects, he sends me photos so that the North Bend media team,
Which is you.
did you pick up in that email? The North Bend media team then can actually post and show where your tax dollar money is being spent. We educate, educate, educate. So our, urban renewal agency, along with our economic development specialist. Okay, but you talk about staffing, we don't have one of those. You look at grant writing, you're looking at the grant writing team and we use some outside contracting. But yeah, I review a lot of the grants. The library sort of does almost all their own stuff. I don't think I've had to review any of yours in a long time. And the fire department has started to submit some of theirs on their own. We're getting there, but that's what's taking. So when you look at infrastructure, when you get down to that educate, that's why the educating route to me is very important, because maybe we need to go a little further. Maybe, Jeff is right. Jeff has been, trying to evaluate, maybe our messaging has to be different. So he's looked at outside, but Roger Craddock said it best. All right, so find a company that says that they can change your messaging that's actually made a difference in the community and changed it around. And so we're looking for that unicorn, as Rodney Stalco calls them, in that arena. That's what we got to figure out to do. Talking to Councilman Hamilton, he's been trying different approaches, talking to school board members, and they're like, aha, and I'm thinking, well, that was the same thing that Jeff said to him, but well, maybe he took a whole different approach, and so it's fascinating when you have that dialogue. That's why, Ralph, I think number 4 is still important.
Number 4 on the old sheet or on the new sheet?
On the screen.
So he doesn't like number 2, the dedicated staff time to research and external funding sources, because I do think that he's saying there's 4 of them, so we don't, like, the time that it's taken, like, they're working all the times. So number 2, which is maximize external funding opportunities, like, we love to do that, but there's not, he doesn't.
Is that what you were saying?
dedicate
So-
staff
Yes,
time.
Would
yes.
you suggest eliminating the maximum in?
Well, it's not a high priority, is what I'm saying. That's,
Okay.
he may change that, but that's in my
But-
opinion.
so-
So Ralph, how many times have I said, let's outsource it, let's contract it, let's get a hold? So there is another way. The downside is Ralph has spent more time trying to find that resource and can't find them. That unicorn's not there. It's very technical.
There's a few there, but they're
You know,
not.
we write almost all of our RFPs and stuff. That doesn't happen.
So if we just delete the line dedicate staff time,
How do we change the slide?
I think it's a compromise with Ralph.
yeah.
How do we change the slide there?
Yeah, I think that was a perfect deletion. I'm okay with it. I'd still make it priority 4, but
It's gotta be part of the, it has. to be
no,
part of
I'm not.
Just dedicated staff,
Yeah.
take out.
My concern in looking at that is we're not overstaffed.
Yeah.
And if we're taking away from what we're doing,
Right,
There's nowhere to take away.
but I feel I'm also hearing you say that you're aware that if it's not some staff time dedicated to that,
there are
that.
sources to work on that outside. Again, all of it takes funding.
Yeah. So just
Nothing's,
research and pursue.
there's no free lunch in any of our,
Okay,
You as your department, the department head can decide how that is allocated.
Thank you.
So we'll leave the develop and implement. Okay,
Lord knows
anything
I know
else?
we've tried.
We've got 1 minute. Can we do the last one in a minute, or should we continue to extend our meeting another 15 minutes? Sarah, do you think we'd be able to continue on
Usually that's
here?
3 hours. You have till 7:30.
Okay, we should have originally had said till 6:30, which I thought was very hopeful.
What was that, the public? What
At least we
was?
could do, these guys have been.
I didn't mishear you, right? She said 6:30 at the beginning of the night? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, she was supposed to be 2 hours and then you had an hour for your agenda. Have you gone over the agenda yet?
Yes.
Oh, see, technically you still have 3 hours budget.
I bet let's have our meaningful conversations, let's stay on track. So let's go to the next one here, priority 4.
Okay, so the next priority area is economic. development. So those the potential success measures: decrease commercial vacancy rates, increase visitor spending, or maintain a stable business retention rate. And then strategic actions, focus on revenue generation, leverage existing assets and resources, foster public-private partnerships, and then implement a phased approach to property vacancies. So I'll give you a minute to read over those and then welcome discussion, questions, edits.
Stephanie earlier told me she was okay. Are you changing something up now? And you can, please.
Well, I'm okay with it. A lot of it's a little blends together. It sounds more like a supportive kind of strategic goal with resources and connecting people, but I'm just looking at it's tricky because like, you know, with my fund, I go off of tourism dollars, right? And so if we don't have the traction to bring them here, we're not gonna have those dollars, but if we don't have the businesses filled in the vacant properties, then we're not gonna attract tourism. So I'm just looking at the order of this, not necessarily to change them. But then, I mean, you can lead a horse to water, right? You can't make it drink. Sorry, I'm a cowgirl, I can't help it. But how do we do that? Is that specifically without requiring city funding? You know, we can connect them all the way, but so I'm just making sure that it's a achievable action plan to meet the goals. I guess is kind of where I'm at and what order we want to put these in.
What's your order? If you were like, okay, these are all hard, what's your order?
Well, so for instance, I showed a business owner properties today. So this is perfect timing. They looked at all these properties and then they have a very specific need, right? Well, if we don't have the property owners with resources to make those adjustments, or they don't have that funding to make those modifications, you know, you take the urban renewal, for instance, what a fabulous program, right? You have these property owners or these businesses and they say, we want to, you know, do this to the facade to make our business more, you know, vibrant or whatever. But without that, it's kind of tricky. So it's just, but without a vibrant downtown and a city as a whole, then how are you gonna get those tourists to actually fund this department?
Yeah,
So
it
it's
really
tricky.
Vivid how the main street, the main drag that people go through, if that doesn't have enough to get somebody to turn the corner and see that there's nobody down there. You know, that was just really.
And our main street's already doing some of this work. Like we've started our economic vitality committee has already started a welcome packet, which includes vacant properties in the district. We have photos of them. Our design committee is working on our own specialized kind of attractive signage, not your basic like, hey, this many events a year, this many people attracted downtown. So if you are just driving through and you're a business owner or a developer, you can see that right on the spot. So we are doing some things to support some of these goals. I just want to make sure that they are what gets us. I want to make sure that we also, even though the money might not be there per se for infrastructure for tourism, that we're really addressing the support, because if there's projects that we want to do, if the grants come up, you have to make sure it aligns with your council goals. So like right now, the current goals that are implemented are very much supportive on infrastructure for tourism. And so when we've been going after these grants aggressively, that's perfect and it aligns. Yeah, we can make a resolution and bring it to you, but I just want to make sure that that aspect is there too. So if that, does that all?
Would it be better to increase like visitor / tourist spending, like with like having visitor / like, is it the wordage in the?
Yeah,
Measure
how we
fix
make
that,
this better so that it's easier for you.
Well, it's tracking that data too. I mean, and I'm just talking about like my district. I work with the small businesses. They don't all have some great tracking system. I can go in there and they're like, oh yeah, my sales were up. Well, can you show me that? Well, my system's old. I can't really, well, can you track the tourism? I don't really have a way to separate it out. I'm like, you can't look at it. Like, so it's just making sure that we can do that as a whole to achieve that.
And sometimes it's anecdotal.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, you just distinguish the data from.
Also, I don't want to get bogged down. Economic development is a whole lot more than just Main Street.
Right,
Okay?
right.
So I work in tandem, you know, with obviously I'm doing economic development citywide. And Stephanie and I work very closely together. Her focus is the Main Street district. But please understand, for instance, like What we did for Cozy Kitchen is jump their sales $1,000 a day right now.
Wow.
Okay, and what we did with Big Lots, we ought to be able to do the announcement probably within the next 30 days. You saw the Margaret Fawn Sizzler project, which actually benefited what happened at Cozy Kitchen, but also helped Yaya's, also helped Vinnie's. Plus, down here at Wildflower also helped Kismet's, the Lakeshore Lodge.
I'm not sure.
Exactly, but you will by the end of the month.
Okay.
And then we worked on the economic development project with Ocean Veterinary. Okay, we did the Rite Aid project and we landed. We're now working with Farmers Insurance because they moved to the mall, and so now we're going to work with her. And so everyone keeps saying your focus, your focus. Well, that's what you see. You don't see the behind the scenes work that we do all the time to keep everything moving. And you know, if you ever want a detailed presentation, because I'm certain we're going to be doing one for the economic development conference soon. But it's really how economic development is done. And so when you see this, please don't just focus on Main Street or tourism, because it's a lot bigger about what we do and how we do it.
I do think we want a presentation, is that also kind of when you like having, Grocery Island coming to us instead of like moving to us?
Yeah, in fact, I already, like, I know, for instance, you know, I think some of you on the council know this, but like, I mean, we knew what the TJ Maxx deal was before it got announced. We know about the Staples, we know about the moving blocks, and the hows and the whats. I already know what they're talking for the former grocery outlet, you know? And so, yeah, we tandemly work together. That's where the South Coast Development Council comes in, you know, or my board position on CCD along with the mayors, you know, or the chamber boards. We're literally all, and it's taken us about 4 years, but all those organizations are all now at the Newmark Center, with the exception of the chamber, but the chamber's holding their meetings there. And so that's what we've accomplished. But you all might not see that, but that's what we've achieved in the 4 years, 7 months, and 8 days that I've been here.
Is there anything else that we need to add, like to reflect in here, that message?
So Stephanie mentioned that she probably wants to reorganize, which, you know.
We will put it in whatever order.
But I do agree, she crossed out visitors, I just increased spending in general. I think that's too specific to say visitor, because I think it's gonna be harder to track. Yeah, like, you know, the tourism agencies, they can help us with that overall data, but I think just spending in general to, you know, stable business retention.
Would you like to have more than stable business retention rate? So there's
That's a suggestion from someone.
Yeah.
Those are Sarah's,
Okay.
coming in from some of the data.
Yeah, I think the stable business retention rate was a suggestion from the survey.
I'm just hearing them want to say.
I don't know if
We're not, take on board a visitor.
Yeah, because I feel like it could just be those two: decrease vacancies and increase spending.
Increase
Increase
local
the-
business spending.
Or just
Yeah, it's just more
increase
broad,
spending.
it's just more broad, especially for the whole city as a whole.
Well, but we mean, we don't mean us increasing, the city or the programs increasing spending, we mean people spending.
Consumer spending.
Consumer spending, yeah.
Yeah,
and do you have a way to track that?
yes, yeah, third party.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
because we know what our leakage is and our.
No vacant businesses and people spending money, period.
And then what order,
Yeah. I just think like number 4 needs to be higher up,
okay.
because that addresses the vacancies, which is overall gonna help economic development.
Maybe.
Do you want to make that number 1?
Well, revenue generation, I just,
Yeah.
everything.
I think
we
number
talk
2 is
about-
okay. Number 2 is
Okay.
fine,
Got it.
and the other one's just
Okay.
kind of online to that to support that, so I don't think that's very important.
Okay.
David, do you have anything else on that? No, okay,
You're good, it's on the radar.
thank you. All right.
Awesome. Okay, great feedback. Thank you. Should we, any other questions or dialogue on this one?
Anybody else? Yeah, I would say we go ahead and move forward.
Okay.
Five is where I think we all have the biggest angst.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons. We recognize that we have a lot of issues here. You know. Whether or not we have enough industry, whether or not we have good paying jobs, whether or not the school systems are at the level to keep folks here. And so, we're working with the chamber because, for instance, like a lot of folks that come in the health field leave, you know, quickly within 2 years. We're starting to get a lot of feedback by having mentors and interactions. And for instance, I just met 2 orthopedic surgeons Saturday. Was that the Final Four game? Was that Saturday? Whatever day it was, we were at Novi's. But it was fascinating. One of them didn't even move his family here. The other one, and so he's commuting back and forth. He drives to Eugene to fly back and forth. The other one was very barren. He's like, where's those really good restaurants? They're foodies. And 2, he's like, where am I gonna find good schools? You know, and so the data keeps coming up over and over. We're hearing the same thing. Now let's go to housing affordability, okay? Housing prices go up. You can't control it. That's market driven. You don't have the industry, so you don't have the higher paying jobs unless you're in healthcare or government or some of the other ancillary businesses. Let's hope the container ship comes. Folks have to get educated and stay here, but then they grow up on housing. Housing itself does not pay for itself. One of the things, if you attended some of the League of Cities, we actually, I think the league was surprised, we actually had information on our website. It's called the CPR, which means you build a house, and that house costs $500,000 to build. Right now, 2024, the actual taxable revenue is based on $252,000 valuation. Okay, so you have measures 5, 50, and then you have the CPR. There's nothing you can do about that. So does a house where they're paying taxes on $252,000 generate enough tax revenue in increment for us to provide services? Okay, and so I've always said you gotta, you know, grow or you'll die on the vine, but we also know we're landlocked. When you get to housing, you know, the annex is a big project of ours and it got shot out of, and that not only would have helped housing, it would have generated about $1 million revenue. It would have taken care of life. And so then all that would brought in a lot, about a quarter, $750,000 back to the school system. And then it would actually lower taxes for everyone. And so then when you look at housing, then you look at all of the additional infrastructure that has to happen and the maintenance and all of that. And so that's the fascinating thing about why this particular, and I know it showed up in the survey, causes us angst. And I'll just stop there.
Should we pull this one off the?
That's up to you all.
off
Came
the
up
thing
in your
because,
survey.
I mean, it's so out of our control.
Yeah, I do believe, and Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, did this get lowered to like all the way at the bottom of from the survey results? Did this one get moved pretty far down by the team already?
Yeah, no, it certainly did. So, I mean, I think to your, everything that you just shared, and especially given context and the other priorities you have, I do think we should look at this with a lens of what is, squarely in your court, in your control that you can do. And
not every, not this strategic create goals around it because of all the angles.
Appears to be a comment in the corner.
A comment in the corner.
I just wanted to point out. State created an agency, Apple, that's gonna be monitoring our housing development. And you also, if you remember, we had a grant funded housing needs analysis done 2 years ago, which came up with the next 20 years, you're gonna need 321 dwelling units.
They don't agree with that, but I can tell you this year alone, you're close to 150 dwelling units that are under permit. So you're halfway through your 20-year goal, your first year.
But
Uh,
we both agree that that goal was not correct.
I'm just, and HAMO is gonna be monitoring you, so it is still a goal, it's still realistic. But I think we're working well along with our goals. We already have housing partnership toolkit. We already have review and regulated policies. Set an incremental goal, so this one is taking care of itself, I guess. Is
Let
part
me
of what-
ask you
We
this.
collaboratively, the previous council over the last 3 years, collaboratively has approved every plan set forth for this.
Yeah.
But my roadblocks are like, hey, at what point does, so much housing then affect the wastewater treatment plant that we can't even maintain, let alone expand? And by the way, we can't expand unless we get part of the airport property, and then we have to find out where we're gonna get the money to actually expand. And so that's why I agree, why this one gives me angst. We recognize, in fact, there's a statewide website, and we're on it, they track and all that stuff. But it's also unfunded mandates. I love it how all the Wizard of Oz work. And this is why this causes me angst. Well, you can hold us accountable to what we are doing as unfunded mandates anyway. And we can't do anything greater than that at this point, if you will.
Let me ask you this, are there several of the items that are under the strategic actions, like, for example, like develop targeted homelessness response? That is, and, identify critical public safety issues, just that item there is maybe important, but maybe in the wrong area. Would that develop a targeted homeless response? Would that be better lived, that strategic action under public safety?
I would leave it to the county and get out of it.
Leave it to what?
I would push it to the county group and leave out of it. And the reason why is, your campaign was a perfect example, making your priorities our priorities. You've heard from your constituent, okay? So they don't want you going beyond what we've already done, in my opinion. And it's an unfunded mandate. And if you actually saw the bills, which kind of you do, you just don't realize it. The cost of the physical, just the sandy can cleanup alone, the vandalism, everything. It's why I sent Parks, some stuff for Coquille. Coquille started to shut down some of its restrooms. The vandalism, you've seen our vandalism following it. The constituent population is telling you very clearly.
Yeah.
You have gotten to an acceptable level.
No more.
If
But I
you're
still
hearing
like
differently, let me know.
Did this originally come from our survey results?
There was one verbiage in there, in that original survey to the community.
From the community.
Yeah.
So the
Go back to
community-
the number of how many people mark that, actually.
So you're not feeling that would need, nobody here at
We
the
don't
table
need to
saying
do
that we
that,
need to take that and put in something else, or, because I'm agreeing that
I think they should take it out.
you,
I think we should remove it.
or, I'm thinking we do away with all of priority 5. But are there some of the items in here that would live somewhere else?
Oh, I mean, it's embedded in policing and you
Yeah.
have the camping. And we're gonna revisit the sites and we have affordable housing coming in.
What were you
I just
saying?
feel like
I'm for actually wiping 5 completely off the map. And
it's
the
good.
whole thing, and putting in there, making our priority 5 area to going over our charter, which we never finished from the last strategic plan.
I don't understand, sorry.
He's like, get rid of housing affordability and availability and bring forward a charter review and update committee from your last, make that your priority.
Where are you gonna put that?
Right there.
Which the question is, could you put that in any of the other 1 through 4?
Well, that was the other question I had, was like, when my umbrella for affordable housing, just because of the circles I run in, includes all of the people I know who are working, struggling to find housing. So, but I think that I wasn't sure if you meant affordable strictly by state standards, which means subsidized. Or if we meant, we don't have places for people to want to work there. So what did that mean on that?
All of that though doesn't have to do with the city.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking at, that's not a city problem.
That's a state.
Well, I mean, I do think we have some obligation to actively engage on potential housing projects, because we have one that we want to do here next door to us.
Yeah.
Like,
And
I'm
we
still
will
gonna
continue to do so, but that's a URA project.
That's a
This is
URA
a
project,
city-
it's not affordable.
This is your
housing.
city
Oh, okay.
strategic plan.
Yeah, okay, that's one bit. That's one bit.
Because
Okay,
I don't think when you put the charter amendment.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we need to do too. Does anybody have any strong feelings about anything here that they feel like they want to make sure lives somewhere else, or we just eliminate 5?
I feel like there's some rehashing in most of this that we've seen prior, so that we know.
Yeah, wait.
Yeah, there's a couple policy
Councilor
things
Torres,
Which policy?
that I would like to
I
see.
feel like you might want to have something to say about this.
No, I know, my turn to say, I just don't know where, I think it's homelessness. I work with these children and foster kids that get reunified and they go back to homeless situations, and it's like, I'm on the ground with it, I just don't know where we would put it in our priority areas. I think that's my issue. I think it's super important because it's not just people that adults, we have a high number of children in our area. Just within North Bend School District, we have close to 150 right now. Well, and our elderly population. Yes. As things rise, the amount of people to find affordable housing for them, our homes, the youngest and the oldest are cities.
I'm wondering if, if things are if the other goals were reached, like sustainable economic development, if that inherently help this area. What is the role of the city as opposed to what is the role of the county?
Yeah.
The county is the one who oversees mental health and housing and,
Yeah.
what is our role?
I think that we just need to make sure that we have representation from the city then in those areas.
And I absolutely know we do. We have 10 city representatives.
Mhm.
I don't, and the state is getting a little more aggressive on that, but our issue has been unfunded mandates. And, housing is a portion of economic development and economic vitality, without question. I mean, and so we know housing related, what is going on and happening regardless, but it is has spokes into everything else. And so it's not as if it's going off the map. The homelessness, we actually have a 5-year agreement in place with the county, and those meetings are occurring at the county level. My thoughts were that this really ought to go back to sort of a policy review where your charter is reviewed. It's time to review your rules of decorum, your council rules. Right. And it is time to look strategically at specific city code, which Public Works will tell you that, they keep getting told code stuff, but it's not really their responsibility. But we really ought to do some revising and review of our city codes and statutes. There's things on the books that just don't make sense or need to be updated or revised. And there's not a real concerted effort. We sort of bring up things piecemeal view.
It's also, the wheelhouse for this mechanism, for this team. So.
All right, so we're changing this. It sounds like we are in
Charter review.
change this to revise, review and revise city statutes and codes. There could be some things in there to look to see if we're,
Charter review committee. Charter review. How you go about that's up to you. And then your council rules of the court. What you do, what you don't. Yeah. Is that's still.
Is that tucked within is that tucked within the charter, council roles and responsibilities, or?
At that document, and then it's a goal of the council to periodically review it. And so we tend to review it every 2 years. Unfortunately, the previous council ended up reviewing it 6 times during their 2-year term.
But you're saying that's included within the charter, or is it, do you want to name that as a separate?
It's not in the charter, it's a charter requirement. Just
Got
like
it.
statutes and codes are not in the charter, but they're the prelude to the, the charter is the prelude. So it's the
Yeah.
review and update the council rules of decorum,
Got it, thanks.
which, quite frankly, I think the council would have wished it had verbiage like, what was that city, Madam Mayor? That came up, was that Walport, was that the city I sent in today?
What was it?
Was that the city I texted you about?
No,
Huh, that what?
What was?
The mayor, which city was that? Mayor?
oh, Walport,
Oh, yeah. So as I was saying, I think the council would have wished that they had similar verbiage in their charter.
What's the?
Previously,
What's the?
which led to an incident of a removal of a council member out of Walport. So it goes back to the charter, because otherwise we wouldn't have had to spend $70,000 to $90,000.
what's our success measures on this, review and revise, charter?
Finalize.
Yes. And updated charter.
And a streamlined charter, a charter that reflects. There's
Yeah,
no.
last time it was reviewed was 2000.
Oh.
Yeah. Been 25 years.
Wow, that's why everybody gets paid big bucks, so.
You're making what, 85,000 a year?
Sarah, this is for you. I
Don't
think
start
what we
rumors.
need is council rules and decorum, like a ruler, RULE.
Oh, got it, okay, thank you. Yep.
That's good face, by the way. You could.
What else? Measure successes, because we're so close now. So, that's your charter. Which one of those is most important to you? I can tell you which is the easiest, but which one's the most important to you out of list 1, 2, 3?
Charter to begin with.
All right, so let's move the charter up. Yeah, and then put that code as 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool, makes sense, yeah.
Any other
Okay.
success you want? Because obviously, a success is actually not only finishing it, but you gotta get it over the finish line. So the charter will take a vote of the people. Your council rules and decorum is ordinance. And revised city statutes will also be ordinances. You can accomplish number 2 and 3 under home rule. You can do certain minor home rule changes under charter, but if you're going to do a complete review and take it to the people, you'll have to have a vote of the people.
All right, so.
Okay.
Successful ballot, sure.
So voter approved streamline, voter approved charter.
Yeah,
Right.
we can't happen to that. Yeah, well, we'd only get you to the finish line with the council as a team. I can't get you a voter approved. Unless I'm Musk, I got $1 million checks.
Presenting a charter to the voters.
Council of the people.
Or get it to the point where it can be presented to the voters. Yeah, I mean, there's other things, like there has to be like a committee, like a charter review committee. That would have to be established.
Yeah, but we give it a revised charter to them.
Exactly. I think your real success is, 1, you get it reviewed and presented to the people. And you have 2 years to get it done. So I think that's a logical success measure, because you can't hold your goal to what the voters may or may not do.
Sure. So reviewed and presented charter, and then same with the rules and decorum.
Ordinances for them, I believe, right?
Yeah. Yeah, review and adopt an updated updated council rules and decorum. Makes sense?
I
And
think
then the
that's a
same
lot
thing
more
for
than
city
one
statutes,
year.
yeah. The same, it'd be the same.
Yeah, it's sort of okay, you're absolutely right. The success there is adopt updated rules and decorum, council rules and decorum. Because that's the finish line. You actually want them updated and adopted.
Adopt, okay, sorry, getting reversed. There we go.
Perfect. And also the city statutes is the same thing, adopt the updated city statutes and codes.
Yeah, but you won't be able to do all of them, so that's very key as to, you'll have to, we'll come up with a plan as to what areas you want us to look at. You want us to look at like chickens first, you wanna look at fowl, you want us to look at, seriously, there's certain areas that, so you gotta sort of give staff direction, because you can't update all of your codes. And you won't have the legal money, because you have to have the legal review as well, so.
The staff has a
It's
short
not
list.
like we're giving you, I'm giving you real examples.
The
Bless
staff,
you.
staff has a short list, I assume.
We always have
Right,
areas we
so-
would like to have updated,
Yeah.
because that's why Ralph always tells me, well, we'll get it done, but we're not supposed to be the code people. I'm like, because we put all that on city planning, it's actually not city planning's responsibility.
Okay,
But they do step up, so we appreciate that.
Sarah, where are we at with this? What else do we need to do?
Well, so, I mean, there's some more work that'll need to obviously happen here to just kind of write descriptions to make it comparable. But then just confirming, we're gonna remove everything else in 5. The previous 5, so we'll remove that. The other things that I had,
Just for the record.
go ahead.
Maybe not because we don't feel it's valid, but because they're saying here that we don't have control over as a city. They're embedded.
Right,
I just want to make sure that we're saying that. I don't want anybody to say North Bend doesn't care about housing
Yeah.
and affordable housing,
Yeah.
but we know where our
Just
wheelhouse.
Yeah, it's the inverse to what Councilor Slater said. It's like on public safety, okay, how far do you reduce crime and then you get to a baseline? It's like staffing, what baseline? We have a lot of all these baselines that are already, and they're going to continue to happen.
Yeah.
We just don't have the resources or the money to increase your baseline, and
Yeah.
so it would be futile to hold staff above the baseline of something
There's
that's
no funding, so
already
we'll
doing.
go ahead and delete that. And so, all right,
I hope that makes
Yeah.
it clear.
all right.
Okay.
next.
Yes, would you all like to review the updated options for vision, mission, and values, given the feedback? You do that, Willer?
Let's do that. We have some choices. We didn't nail down a single one. We can just go straight up vote, see if we can get, just straight up.
Yeah,
vote.
okay. Yeah, so there's some options for vision. So maybe we start there. So you can see the original, and then got some rewrites that I worked with in the survey. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to let you read these 3, and then I would love maybe a motion. If there's one that someone wants to put forward, we could just kind of vote out of these 3. What feels the closest?
I think that's our original.
The original is there, you can keep that, or you all went through the surveys collectively, and so there was a lot of feedback. And so based on these survey responses, she has provided 3 updated potential drafts based on feedback.
I just didn't know if we were still option to vote.
You can still keep, yes, that's always an option.
I like 3.
Me too. I love 30.
I mean,
Great, fine.
I mean, I'm open, but 3 is easy. It's forward. You got community, you got coastal. The only thing is, let me go, wait, the chart. Wait, I was gonna say, I take that back.
What's that?
Well, I'm just thinking, we don't have any housing for those new residents, so never mind.
Yeah.
Well, you actually have quite a bit of housing coming.
They said that they got more,
Yeah, you have housing coming. It's in the works now.
I like you.
I mean, when Senator Anderson was running, he came down here and took pictures in front of all the different phases of the housing. I mean, we published our permit data, but we have housing.
How about attract, what, can we just take out the word new, just attracts residents, businesses and visitors to experience the community?
Well, you don't say old.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, Jenny, just take out the word.
Yeah,
new.
that's fine, yeah.
Take out the word new.
At least
Okay.
it's-
I hear Counselor Slater like the original one.
Okay.
Counselor Torres, was there?
I mean, for the original, I just wish it said we envision a thriving and safe North Bend where residents.
Yes, I mean, some of the feedback I got was some folks wanted to remove inclusive and clean. People wanted to emphasize our pride, add in welcoming, remove celebrate. So that's some of what you see. If you all are liking the first ones or the original, we could just make some of those tweaks.
Yeah.
So it may look more something like this. We envision a thriving and safe.
They're here as opposed to new businesses.
Yes,
Yeah.
and so forth.
Yeah.
And did you say you want to take out the word inclusive or?
Yeah.
There were a couple of suggestions to that point, and then also taking the clean. I think it maybe felt redundant to that person. I'm gonna just try some things here. We also had the suggestion of honors instead of celebrates.
So there we go.
Yeah.
Do you like that?
Yeah, well, that's
So
what
what
we
the word
did.
for instead of natural coast, can we just get the word natural and just say coastal beauty?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah,
I'm in, I like that one. Good, good.
we got, it's natural coastal beauty at the top. Okay, so the bold is what we have now.
Yeah.
That's your.
Yeah. Y'all like that one?
Yeah.
Okay. And this doesn't have to be like the final, if there's a small tweak we want to make, but that's great. All right, should we move on to mission?
I like the one in yellow, but this little piece of here and shared sense of pride. So we put that right after the coastal.
Oh.
Honors and spoke beauty and
My tattoo.
shared sense of pride.
I would like if we could get to a shared sense of pride in our community.
Too much to ask for, right?
Oh, meaning what we envision would be a shared sense, so we don't have it, but like think.
I don't know if I like the shared sense of pride being into that.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
Well, I mean, we could say we honor our shared sense of pride, but that's what's lacking in not only this community, but nationwide. We're having a serious issue. We wouldn't have a lot of the issues we're having right now with a lot of this if we had that pride.
Well, how about
There. That's what we
if you cut from that honors its coastal beauty and have visitors prosper in vibrant community united by our natural beauty and shared sense of pride.
Too much beauty.
Let's keep it simple.
So
Let's do the.
I don't know if we added that,
Or
later,
replaced
if there's anything new I feel like we're repeating ourselves.
Yeah.
Really, I was just looking to see if there was a different word than vibrant. I heard you guys say that you like vibrant, but I feel like that could be.
Well, so I was looking at lively, energetic.
Yeah.
Dynamic, bustling, thriving.
Thriving to me means like houses.
Yeah.
Thriving means that you have the things that you need, like when the baby's born, it has like, it thrives, that it's doing well.
Oh, yeah.
Vibrant, people might want vibrant.
We have thriving at the beginning.
Driving and driving, it's where you wanna go. It's where you see yourself down the road.
Sorry, everyone. It's a little hard to hear you. My AirPods died, but I'm trying to keep up. Are there any other, are you suggesting to remove vibrant?
We have you have two kind of sentences. That the first highlighted two lines there, I feel like is where we're at. We envision a thriving and safe North Bend where residents, businesses, and visitors, so we've got everybody under that umbrella. Prosper in a vibrant community that honors its coastal beauty.
What about like growing?
Well, we don't have room to grow.
Once they see that, it'll be growing.
Into what we have right now.
Write it, they will come.
Write it, they will come.
Let's take a straw.
Thriving could.
A and B. Trees and dust. Let's take a straw poll.
How Logan Schultz has
Okay.
the pedal of the swung.
Yeah, who, right now, is anybody leaning towards A? Okay, anybody leaning towards B?
I can live with that.
Okay,
Let's do it.
I think A, we're just missing words, like,
We are missing words.
we all wanna thrive, we all want our residents or visitors to do well.
Yeah, we're out of fries.
And I mean,
That's like saying that we're not gonna do anything for housing or homelessness. The pride, you know,
Within the vibrant.
okay,
can you as a government change the pride of your community?
Sure, you, be
How about-
prideful.
Sarah, how about rugged?
That's gonna be a proclamation.
Rugged.
They have
I'll
to
give a
be
place to
prideful.
no song about it.
I like rugged.
All right,
You know,
so we
that's why I
had
like-
A, Sarah, and
Okay.
now move on to
Add rugged coastal beauty.
mission.
What's the word rugged?
Rugged.
I'll tell you
Why?
why, because I listened to, I think it's Astoria at Oregon, we'll talk about how like, they're like, we're a little bit gritty and a little bit pretty. Like they use, we have a working port where business needs to happen. We have a rugged coastline, it's meant for a marine highway and all, you know, so businesses and.
Are we rugged?
That's for the young, see there.
All right. I mean, that's something that, you know, Haley had said to me early, and she's like, you know, you'll see after a couple of years, you know, why some of these houses, you know, look the way they do. Okay.
So, yeah.
It's that rugged coastal,
We're rugged
beautiful,
community. We're
right,
rugged.
you know, it's not that they're not prideful, but they're kind of content happy.
Not like, I like to see kayaking in that bay as much as I would a shipping container,
Yeah.
you know, I mean,
Let's add rugged
right,
and then stop.
okay, we'll add rugged and then move on. Okay, A.
Got it. Okay. And then mission. So I'll step back and you can look at our original, which we hadn't really landed. We still had some question marks in there, but some updated options.
Different. I feel like I'm on 3 again, because we're committed to, but we have all these things that make it impossible to really, at this moment, say we can provide all those essential services, so we're committed.
Thriving and sustainable.
What is our mission? We're trying to get there.
Wanna be. That's what we're doing pretty.
That's just their.
Hallelujah.
Wait, which one do you like?
Can't see three. Oh, there it is.
Because you know that is.
Yeah.
Number one.
Too short, we look from you too short, that's. Since when were you?
Oh, yeah, it's right there.
Yeah, 15 minutes to hash this out. I'm not one for time. 15.
It's like that
Two different people.
Wizard of Oz, and it's like, where's that voice coming from?
Why don't I ever sleep anymore?
Is the vision and mission gonna be back to back?
All right, so.
They usually are.
Definitely get one with you.
Yeah. So think of your vision as like where you aspire to get, and then think of your mission as like the driveway that's gonna help drive the path to get you there.
But they're also one
Two
after the other,
Two
wherever
systems.
we're gonna post them.
Yeah,
Two sets of
yeah.
points.
And then once you have a
That's all right.
yeah, once you have a vision statement, we're just gonna start publishing it on every agenda moving forward. Makes sense. A lot of organizations do that.
I'm in for one.
Huh?
You know, close by for you.
So, then we're doing, take control of cats.
Yes. So so what words are we thinking that we want to remove the repetitive words?
Sure.
Here,
Well, first we have to pick one that we like essentially.
Yeah.
Is there one that somebody likes?
I like 3. He likes 2.
I like 3. You like 2?
Hamilton does.
how many people like to?
So we got 1, 2, and 3 so far.
Okay,
I'll switch to 3.
okay, how, 3? Can you scooch I can't see what the closed caption is. Okay. Well, she's changing this real line. I'm watching her change. Yeah, this is good. We're providing committing the resources and infrastructure that people will pay for necessary to ensure a safe and secure environment for both residents and visitors.
3. That's the one.
You guys are leaning towards 3? Okay.
We all can go to 3, I still like number 1, but you know, that's the way the system operates.
That's true.
I like all of them, yes.
Okay. And then should we look at values?
Sure.
You guys ready to move on? Okay.
We got 12 minutes.
So the way you would think about values is if your vision is kind of your why, kind of that big, bold, what you're aspiring towards. Your mission is kind of your concrete, what you do. So your why, your what, and then your values are your how. So if you think about your mission, and your kind of core work, this is more of the how you do that work together in service to your mission. So these were based on the words that came up in the survey from folks. So I'll give you a second to look at these. I would love to keep it at a list of no more than 5. So if there's anything else we'd want to add, I'd want to look at changing, just because in my experience, any more than that, you're not going to remember them, and you do actually want your values to be memorable. And we could write short descriptions for each of these that could include some of the other kinds of words that came up for folks, which I have those down in the notes. So caring, informed, integrity, welcoming, experienced, inclusive, thoughtful. Those were some of the other kinds of words that came up, but
I'm hearing a consensus already that people want community minded up at number 1.
Yeah.
okay.
And you had down there below like the other stuff and then it went away. Like I saw the list of the others.
Yeah, these were some of the other words that came up in the, sorry, they're so small, but, might be-
Months ago, there'd be three.
It ought to be, but we're at minimum staffing on all levels. That's just an understatement.
So these are fundamental beliefs that shape how we work together for our mission, okay? Well, being geographically isolated, I think we always have to be collaborative with other people.
For sure.
We owe it to the community to be accountable. I don't know, is resilient something that we feel is necessary in there? Would you want to replace that?
I would say informed.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I like that. Just take out resilient but informed. And I don't know if responsive. Maybe is it just forward or do you want to keep responsive? What does
Yeah, I mean,
responsive
it's
mean?
kind of overlapping with collaborative. I
Yeah.
feel like responsiveness, at least.
I like integrity under third five.
Okay.
Integrity is a good one.
Connects with pride that we did put in.
It ought to be the basis where you all start from.
I'll share, integrity always drives me a little bonkers because you can't get them in consistent case or tense, excuse me, with integrity, but it's okay. Like you could say, we are community minded, collaborative, accountable, informed, integrity.
What is the adjective for that?
I've never quite figured out how to replace it, but
Then it has to be a phrase.
I think it's integrous, but nobody really ever uses that word, so.
Well, remind me, we like, before this goes to the final version, we get like one more. Like, we can make some edits, I feel like we're getting a little punchy here.
Yeah, okay.
So I feel like. This isn't the end, this is, we're not writing this in Sharpie tonight.
No, but you could wipe five floating out there and start forward too.
I think your next meeting, isn't it a daytime meeting? Yeah, that's
Yeah, that we can't all get to.
exactly, yeah. Yeah, so we'll have to,
April sometime.
yeah, the next one is a daytime meeting.
When is it?
Do you have the next date handy, Sarah? Do you know when it's?
Oh, the next meeting is more focused on coaching all of the teams together, all the cities together to think about implementation. So we would be working on the strategic plan content in there. So any like follow-up and refinement, we're gonna have to do probably virtually, or if you all are able to integrate it into one of your upcoming meetings, but that meeting on April 28th is more focused on implementation.
I mean, or what are you guys thinking?
I think,
That we were getting it down to like the final draft.
I think we're close to a final draft.
Yeah.
For sure.
Do you want to have your eyes on this one more time before we accept it or whatever?
I will not be looking at it.
Yeah.
Good job. I will give it a final draft.
Yeah. So it's silent review.
We'll have one more council meeting on the 21st. We could add that to our council work session to say, was there any last minute questions about words or anything like that? Have some time to kind of sit with it tonight, you know, and after 3 hours, you're like, blend together.
What time is it on the 28th?
The 28th, I have my calendar at 9 a.m., 9 to 10. Well, no,
Excuse me.
Let me check. Yeah, that one is, let's see.
and that was that an invitation that went to like all the parties that are in this cohort?
Yes.
Yes,
Monday, the 28th from 9 to 11.
Virtual.
Yeah.
the cohort.
So as
That's
a
the
council,
final
I think we
closeout.
should have a final draft that comes back.
I would think that's acceptable, because that's your final closeout, is that cohort for the next step.
Yeah. And that way
On
we
the
can,
21st, is someone gonna email it to Sarah or like, is that enough time for you, Sarah?
Well, after tonight, after we,
We'll facilitate that prior to that meeting.
Yeah, but if we make changes on the 21st, she said we wanna get eyes on it one more time.
and they would be just like tiny little,
Yeah, but I just didn't know if there's enough time to.
Yeah, so we would get a copy from Sarah, we would send it out. Then, so that we don't have a meetings issue, you would give me any direct feedback, or she would go and create another poll, but I can't imagine there's going to be massive changes after. what we've done
might
tonight.
not like the word rugged next week, I don't know.
Rugged, yeah, and then that way, you would get it, the Friday before that meeting, so you'd have that weekend yet again. And the goal is, Sarah doesn't have to be at that meeting, we just need to tell her we're changing this or changing that, and,
Yeah, I'm not anticipating any massive changes.
yeah.
Okay, so if I get you all like a working version, then you could even just make, are you saying live edits? You all could get it to final in that meeting on the 21st? Is that right?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just not gonna open it up to the rest of the staff there, this would, at this point, this portion is just strictly council.
Yeah. Does that mean you guys got some of what you wanted tonight with the discussion?
Yes.
David, did you?
Well, I work with plenty of agencies on this, trust me, I'm
No,
all
what I'm
in.
saying is, did you
I'm
get
good,
some
but
of
they're
what,
good.
what I'm saying is, did you get some of what you wanted us to do?
It doesn't really matter what I get. What matters is that we're a team and we've got a good working compromise here, so.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, any other slides here?
Okay.
Look, it's almost 6:30. Good morning, America, GMA.
Sarah, was there anything else on your slide deck here that you wanted to show us?
Nope, that's it. I will send you all a follow-up document with where we landed on things, and really good work. Thanks, y'all. Appreciate the thoughtfulness, and thanks to the staff for all the work that you all did to help us be prepared and make sure we could get to a realistic and achievable plan.
Thank you, Sarah. I know that you had to pivot quite a bit from our conversation last week, but I greatly appreciate the professionalism and leadership there, so.
You bet. Yep.
All right, have a
And
good night.
Before you adjourn, so ask the chief, what request he got.
Chief, what kind of, what's chief?
Fire chief.
Fire chief, Brown, what kind of request?
Look at that face, look at that face.
Good Morning America just emailed one interview.
Oh,
Wow.
They went them on Good Morning America, City North Bend. Yeah.
So, you're saying yes? Are you saying yes?
Yeah, he's saying yeah.
I'll call them back in the morning sometime.
Sometime, I mean, hello, there's a time, there's a time difference there. So get on that, we stay up overnight.
Not tonight.
They wanted- all right,
We need a thriving, vibrant community and people to come here, so put us on the map, chief. You just tell them how great that fire department, police and public safety is,
yes.
and
It's a
how we
huge
take care of everybody.
story. You guys called the action, you came out there, everybody was safe. Go for it, all right, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.